Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Reddit Threads video. And today we're getting into some terrifying Reddit threads where I do a deep dive into some crazy Reddit threads I found in some Reddit posts. And the threads I have for you guys today are terrifying, disturbing, and super interesting. So you'll want to stick around, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And please consider joining the Patreon for $5 a month to get early access videos, uncensored videos, and much more. So please consider that. It's in the pinned comment in the first link in the description. So please consider joining. I'd love to see you over there, but no worries if not. And this will be a long video, so sit back, relax, and let's get into some terrifying Reddit threads. My 31 male girlfriend, who's 29F, has a locked room in her house. I don't know what is in it. Originally posted on April 12th, 2017. The post read as follows. My girlfriend Amy and I have been together for 5 years, and we are planning on moving in together into her home when my lease is up in 2 months. Our relationship is great. We have arguments, but no often, and we always resolve them like rational people. Amy owns a house and she bought it about 10 years ago. The city we live in was depressed for a while. Picture Detroit, but not. Where if you were so inclined, you could buy a big house in a bad neighborhood for a song and dance and then fix it up and hope the neighborhood would come around, which is luckily what happened to her. It's a big old Victorian house with 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Usually we hung out at my apartment since it was near her work and I don't have a car to get out to her place. But some weekends here and there I would spend the night. When my job went remove 5 months ago, I started spending a lot more time at her place. It wasn't until after a month I realized the one room upstairs has a latch with a padlock on it. I thought it was really weird that it was a padlock and not just a door lock. I mentioned it to her, and she just said, "Yeah, I really don't go in that room or use it." What? I mean, I get that it's a big home and she lived in it alone for a long time, so she didn't need the space, but to padlock it like that? I asked her what was in it, and she shrugged and said, "Stuff," like it was no big deal. I asked if we could open it since maybe that would be a good space for my home office, and she said no. Now, I'm really curious, and it's actually sort of eating away at me. I don't care what is in the room. I just honestly don't get why it is padlocked shut. That's weird, right? Am I being unreasonable since I'm moving in? I understand the right to privacy and I wouldn't snoop. It's on the 2nd floor. I've been sort of paying attention now, if she goes in there or not, and I don't think she ever does. I feel like since I'm moving in, I have a right to know, but do I? I don't want to make her open it, but she's so nonchalant about it and changes the subject that my mind keeps running away with me about what could be in there. I'm just wondering what other people think, what I should do, and if I'm being unreasonable wanting to see/know what it is, this padlocked room, or if I don't have a right to. Our relationship is amazing and perfect except for this one really weird issue. And then some of the top comments were kind of joking around with the OP. Someone even made a joke post saying, number 1, 4 children from her previous marriage that she doesn't want you to know about. Number 2, her mother's mummified body. Number 3, she's secretly a slob and that's where she throws all the unwashed dishes and hoarded cat poop. Number 4, 23 cats, no more, no less, and a lot of cat poop. 5, all of her previous boyfriends and 2 ex-husbands who mysteriously disappeared. 6, her collection of fingers, they no longer fing. 7, a horse, that's why you hear those noises at night. The sound of distant nickering. 8, marijuana farm. 9, Dracula. And then someone else comments a reply to that comment saying 10, satanic altar. 11, freaky dungeon. 12, trafficked people. 13, portal to another dimension. 14, the TARDIS. And then someone comments, that room is huge on the inside. Plenty of room for all the bodies. And then the OP replies to this thread saying, cats sent me into an almost dying asthma attack, so I think if there was 23 of them, I would know. The marijuana farm is very unlikely. She's in law enforcement, LOL. Someone else says, maybe it's her clutter room, like Monica has from Friends. Another commenter says, This is straight out of a horror movie. You've been together 5 years. Some ominous locked room in the house you plan to move into is a huge fucking no-no. You do have a right to know since you're moving in. Weird, creepy secrets should not be a thing in relationships. Tell her it makes you uncomfortable and you'd like to know what's in that room before you move in. And then the OP replies to that comment saying, "That's a good way to phrase it, about it making me uncomfortable. Hopefully she knows I mean it. I'm really big on privacy and respecting privacy boundaries, but this really is just driving me up a wall." Another commenter says, "And while I know you two are big on privacy, you have to come back with an update on what's in the room. We need to know. Unless you end up getting murdered by the clown dolls from a burned down children's hospital that are locked inside." And then the OP replies to that comment saying, "Oh God, I didn't even consider clowns. I will absolutely give an update either way. She's working in overnight tonight, so I will talk to her tomorrow." And then another commenter says, "I'm enjoying this thread so much. On a serious note though, has your girlfriend experienced any serious trauma that you're aware of?" I ask because I also had a never go in that room. Last year, my daughter almost died in her bedroom. It was a CPR and defibrillator and ambulances and a world-class children's hospital involved level incident. She's okay now, but I couldn't stay in that house again. We moved out a week later, and every time we went back to pack, I had to have my husband deal with her room, with the door closed. Just too many horrifying memories. Like I said, I know it's a stretch, but is it possible that something like that could have happened? And then the OP replies to that comment saying, "Wow, that must have been so scary. I'm glad your daughter is okay. As far as I know, there's been no trauma. But after 5 years, I would have thought I would have heard about it by now. Unless she decided to not tell me, which I would respect if it was that traumatic." And then the OP posted an update on April 15th, 2017, which was 3 days later after the original post. The post read as follows. "Here is my update. I never did figure out how to post it. Hello Reddit. I promised an update to my prior post in this sub. Sorry for no link. I'm on mobile, so not sure how to link it, but if you look in my post history, it's the only one on there. I would have posted early, but I needed some time to digest things. I had a long talk with my girlfriend when she got home from work in the morning about the locked room. She tried to blow it off a few times and get off the conversation until I told her I couldn't move in until she told me what was in the room and I saw it for myself. I told her I didn't care what was in there. After posting here, I was more and more convinced that it was probably guns or something related to her work in law enforcement, as that really did make a lot of sense. Eventually, she just broke down sobbing. Big, giant, ugly sobs like I've never seen before. It was pretty shocking. She's not really a crier. It took a good 15 minutes before she could even start forming words that I could understand between giant sobs. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see, and I knew as soon as she started crying that it wasn't a room full of guns or work stuff. Actually, the room is empty. There is nothing in there. Someone had surmised in the comments of the other posts that maybe there was some trauma. I forgot who it was, but unfortunately, they were correct. She was basically a kid at 19 when she bought the house. Like I said, bad neighborhood, fixer-upper, etc. And it was dirt cheap due to the city she lived in and those other factors. She had always been smart with her money, so she had a big down payment and was planning on taking the rest of her savings to fix it up. I don't want to get specific with details as it's pretty gruesome and also privacy, but in her 3rd week living there, she had a home invasion while she was home in that room, and she was assaulted. She had no money to move and no family around, so she stayed in the home after buying a security system and locking the door up and planning to just never unlock it and basically never go in that room again. So there you have it. I seriously was not expecting that at all, and it has been a long week for her, and I feel terrible. I made her tell me, but she says that she's glad I now know. She never told me before because she didn't want to, which I totally respect. Also, that is when she decided to start a career in law enforcement to help other people. FYI, I have not actually seen in the room, and now I don't feel I ever need to. I, 21 male, found a folder on my girlfriend's, who's 24 female, laptop containing hundreds of candid photos of me. We've only been dating for 5 weeks. Originally posted to r/relationship_advice, and the original post was posted on December 3rd, 2018. And the OP wrote, "Going to keep this short. Last night I stayed over at my girlfriend's apartment, which is about 15 minutes away from my college campus. She had to work this morning, and I didn't have any classes today, so I just stayed at her place while she went to work. A few hours after she left, I got bored and decided to try to pull up Netflix on her laptop so I could stream it onto the TV. Whenever I unlocked the laptop, I saw that her photo gallery was pulled up, and in one of the albums, I saw a picture of myself. This album contained literally hundreds of photos of me all over campus that I had no clue existed. A few of the photos were even of me while I was asleep at her place a few weeks ago. What does this mean, and how do I go about bringing this up? She is still at work and gets home in about an hour. Edit. Forgot to add that she doesn't even go to my school, so there is no reason for her to be there." And some of the top comments on this post read as follows. Someone says, "This sounds really creepy. Are the photos timestamped/dated at all? Is it possible she was stalking you before you got together?" And the OP responded saying, "Yeah, about 10 were before we started dating, but we had already met by that point. Still very creepy." And then someone comments underneath OP's response there and says, "Wait, so you're saying it's 10 photo after you meet, but before was dating? Are you sure she didn't have a crush on you after you meet and then took them randomly when seeing you? Was there a photo before you meet?" Someone else says, "If true, this could turn into a potentially dangerous situation. Stalkers do not deal with rejection easily. Make copies of evidence as quickly as you can. Stalkers don't just do it as a phase, and she might need some serious psychological help." The OP responds saying, "That's what I'm thinking too. I plan on breaking up. But should I even bring up the fact that I saw the photos? The crazy part is she doesn't seem like anything is off about her personality-wise." And then someone comments, "Hey babe, I was thinking of making a several hundred photo collage of myself for my mom for Christmas. Know where I can find several hundred candid photos of me?" And then someone says, "Get out. OP should run so hard and fast, he leaves a person-shaped hole in the goddamn wall. This is the beginning of a horror movie." And then someone else says, "Cue the Kool-Aid man. Oh yeah." And then the OP leaves an update. "I've been receiving a bunch of DMs asking if I was dead yet. LOL. I'm not dead yet. I'm fine." So I did what one of the comments suggested I do. I took a photo and a few videos of the photo album in case I need it sometime down the road. And I made sure that I left her apartment about 20 minutes before she got home from work. I drove over to the nearby park, texted her, and told her I was working out, and asked her if she could meet me there when she got home. Anyways, she showed up and I didn't waste any time. I told her that I found the album on her laptop, and she just stared at me with an emotionless look for about 30 seconds. After telling her to say something, all she said was, "Well, this is awkward. I don't really know what to tell you." I asked her why she had all of these weird photos of me, and she just said, "I don't know." I never received a real answer. After trying to get something out of her for like 15 minutes, I told her that I didn't want to do this anymore, and that I thought it'd be best if we separated. Again, she just stared at me and did not say anything. So I left and went back to my place. Since then, she has blocked me on all forms of social media, and I'm pretty sure she blocked my phone number too, so I haven't heard anything from her since leaving the park last night. And then some people say, if she blocked you, it doesn't seem like she wants to contact you again. Not sure a restraining order would work in that situation. The OP then says, "Yeah, I know. At this point, I'm good, but I'm saying if in the near future, if I notice weird stuff continues to happen." And then someone replies to OP saying, I don't know, man. Her blocking you could be embarrassment, or it could be a way of controlling your ability to block her. I think you should still keep an eye on her. Someone else comments saying, her lack of any emotion through this entire interaction is the disturbing piece of this. Not even embarrassment or anger. Jeez. Someone else says, that's straight up sociopathy. Right there. That icy look was probably the glare of imminent revenge. I'm telling you, dude, see about getting a protective order. Then someone else says in that comment chain, especially because she blocked him, meaning she can unblock him at will. She purposely took that power out of his hands. And then someone else says, prove that you're OP and you're not OP's girlfriend typing this with his severed hand or something. They'll know it's me if I type it with my own hands. I need to type it with his hands to make sure his essence is in the post. And then that's the end of the thread. So hopefully OP's okay, but a very weird situation. And I wonder what the OP's girlfriend was doing with those photos and why she had them and what sort of situation they were in. Was she stalking him beforehand, or was she just kind of weirdly obsessed with him? And why was she so kind of nonchalant about being caught? Like, her not reacting at all is very, very weird, like the comment said. I really wonder what was going on, but hopefully OP's okay and she's not continuing to take photos of him, because that's a really real possibility. But I don't know, and we have not gotten an update. So I guess we'll have to see. On to the next one. My best friend has crossed the point of no return. IVH. I am watching his life fall apart before my eyes and feel completely helpless to do anything about it. Posted April 15th, 2021. I'm no stranger to drugs. I've tried almost anything anyone has ever put in front of me, and despite that, I've never struggled with substance abuse at any point in my entire life. Never let any substance become a daily thing, besides weed at certain points in my life. But I've always been able to cold turkey if necessary, and I'm talking stims, opiates, and everything in between. Never had cravings I couldn't just toss aside. Honestly, I feel like I'm too busy with my job, hobbies, and personal relationships to ever have the time to be a drug addict. I just don't have enough time to get high, and I'm not in love with it enough to make time. Substances are just something I do for fun sometimes. Throughout my life, most of my friends have been similar to me in this way. I've done more substances than most of them, but only 2 of the friends who have tried as many different substances as I have. One of them was a polydrug user who finally got clean in 2017 after some ODs and is still clean to this day, genuinely living his best life. The other is my best friend, who for the sake of anonymity, we will call Rodney. We were roommates for a few years until I moved in with my girlfriend in April of last year. We've been through a ton together and have been friends for 10 years as of this summer, and extremely close for the past 5. When we lost our townhouse due to my ex causing a ton of shit and eventually withholding rent, my mom took the both of us in until we were able to get back on our feet. That's where the whole situation I'm asking for advice on today really begins. Before we lost our townhouse in mid-2019, Rodney was in a pretty experimental phase of his substance use. He was doing a lot of hallucinogens and other pills, and because it was in front of me so much, I would indulge too, although not as frequently as him. I was personally doing a lot of coke at the time, which he wasn't really engaging with me, saying the hangovers were too much for him at the time, and he found the days after too depressing. The Xans got pretty out of hand for him. He pretty much traded in his average of smoking a ½ ounce of shatter every pay period to maybe 1 or 2 grams and just got fucked on benzos all day instead. Told me they helped him feel human, as he suffered from pretty severe anxiety, and I did too, so I was sensitive to that. Once our supplier's stock started getting inconsistent, he eventually drew back out of necessity because he could not handle the withdrawals. Shortly after this is where we moved in with my mom. My mom and her husband are extremely anti-substance. They rarely drink and have both never so much as been in the same room as a joint willingly. It shouldn't surprise anyone that our being welcome pivoted pretty directly on the understanding that we wouldn't be bringing any substances into the house. Rodney, who hasn't spent a day sober since we were 13 years old, actually acclimated shockingly quickly. He respected my parents' rules and kept any shatter he had in his toolbox at work. It's legal here in Canada, but rarely smoked it simply due to the inconvenience of it. Suddenly, substance use was something that he only really engaged in social settings, even with weed. Things were good for us. Come December of that year, though, that all changed. Rodney went to Christmas dinner at his family home and was surprised that his dad wasn't there. His parents had recently split up and moved into separate apartments, but were still close friends living in the same building and saw each other frequently, so it didn't make sense for him to not be there. Rodney's twin brother arrived late to dinner and was a bit upset, informing everybody that their dad had called him that day with some news. Turns out their dad is gay, but being an older dude, stayed in the closet due to fear of discrimination for his whole life. He had made the decision to move back to Ontario because he had been in a secret relationship with his boyfriend for an undeclared period of time and couldn't really handle facing the family he raised. The dude literally told one of his 3 kids, "Hey, I'm gay, I have a boyfriend, and I'm running away with him. If you could let your mom and siblings know for me, that'd be great," and walked out of their lives completely. On fucking Christmas. Nobody in that room handled it particularly well, understandably so, but Rodney took it really hard. Overnight, the guy shut me out emotionally. He wouldn't go into details about what was on his mind like he usually did, and I didn't want to push him. I figured he just needed time to process what he was facing. To this day, my idea of how he felt at the time is entirely based off of assumption and observation. He became severely depressed. He found a new dealer, my other clean buddy's old connect, who I regrettably introduced him to several years prior, and started buying them by the hundreds. For months, this dude just popped bar after bar until they barely did shit to him anymore. He ended up getting very close to an older man who runs a popular sandwich shop and deli in our town, as one of our mutual friends would go there to smoke weed with him in the back room sometimes. They liked his stories. He led a very interesting life. There is a Sundance Festival award-winning documentary about this particular deli owner. I'm not even shitting you. Well, after a bit, Rodney had been going there long enough for this deli owner to open up to him about the fact that he frequently smoked crystal meth. Rodney, being no stranger to trying new substances and in a particularly vulnerable state, asked if he could try it. Deli guy wouldn't let him for a long while, but eventually cracked after a few weeks of pestering. He smoked crystal every other day for 2 weeks after that, didn't sleep for most of it, and still went to work every single day through it all. He got reckless about substances in my parents' place. He'd be so fucked up, he'd pass out in random spots in the house, and would be so wired other times, he'd start cleaning the kitchen at 2 a.m. and wake everyone up. My parents aren't idiots. They knew something was up, and it all came to a head when he started getting so fucked up on the bars that he'd start sparking joints right there in his bedroom without being lucid enough to remember he wasn't allowed. My parents were aware of the situation with his dad and were trying to be sensitive to it, but they gave him the ultimatum that if this shit didn't stop immediately, he wasn't going to be allowed to live there anymore. They didn't know what he was on, they just wanted it to stop and gave him another chance. I ended up coming clean to all of our other friends that Rodney was going off the rails during a mushroom trip I was on when he wasn't there. My entire life had become mitigating the tension between him and my parents, and the stress of it all was too much for me. He wasn't himself. He wasn't opening up to me anymore, and I was losing my best friend. I needed help getting through to him. He refused to talk about the substance use with anyone, and kept telling people we were all freaking out over nothing and turning him into some kind of spectacle that we would judge for entertainment. It was never like that. But that didn't stop him from permanently cutting several of our close friends out of his life because they weren't supporting him. He just convinced himself that nobody actually cared and they just wanted something to gossip about. He got kicked out of my parents last April and moved into a shitty motel in our town on a weekly rate for a bit. He was super fucked up on bars one day and came clean to me that he started having relations with the deli guy during their meth sessions. I don't know if he even remembers telling me. Said he's not gay, but he likes to get off or some shit. It seemed to me like he was really questioning his identity after everything with his dad. And it was going off the rails trying to get his head in order and was doing a dangerously poor job at it. I started to withdraw from him after he got kicked out of my mom's. He wouldn't listen to me anymore, and it hurts me too much to force it. By this point, the pandemic was in full swing. I'd see him outside my house from time to time, and he told me he was cleaning up, not doing the bars anymore. He had a fair number of other drug stories. However, mostly coke binges, despite the fact that he used to hate blow, but was suddenly all for it. He would talk about hanging out with other people who I'd never met and doing substances with them. He'd always keep it vague though, and even when I'd call him out on it, he'd never go into detail about what he was doing with them. Aside from the mysteriousness, he seemed like he was pretty much back to his old self for a while. When we hung out, it finally felt normal. Sure, he had his substance stories, but they were much more in tune with the occasional fun type stories they used to be for us than the constant it became for him at one point. I thought he was getting better. I was wrong. One plug started selling hydros. I don't fuck with opiates anymore. My girlfriend's dad is an addict who abandoned them when she was 11, and I won't touch them out of respect for her. But Rodney picked a few up and took them to a test site. They were clean. No fent at all. He flaunted that receipt like he just found the damn Ark of the Covenant or some shit. Suddenly, he was doing hydros almost daily. He justified it in his head that, because they were clean, they were safe. Kept trying to do them with me, but I refused. At first, he was fine not bringing them around me. But as time went on, and the pandemic restrictions relaxed to allow him in-home gatherings again, he started disappearing to the bathroom for a while. When he'd come out over, and come out nodding like a motherfucker. I didn't say much. Felt like the words would be wasted on him. I thought that maybe, if I was just there for him emotionally, while he worked through everything, it would all be okay. Then the safe supply came. During the pandemic, our government began prescribing opiates for recreational use to addicts because our street opiate supply was so overridden with fent. He also has to take methadone with it to get the hydros, but he still gets 6 4-milligram hydros a day from the pharmacy. That was a problem, because he wasn't doing anywhere near that many hydros before due to the cost. But with the safe supply, all he had to pay was a dispensing fee, around the cost of a single pill from the plug. His tolerance shot through the roof. Within less than a month of him getting the safe supply, him and I had planned a coke night with another buddy of ours. This was last weekend. We picked up the coke, and he asked me to give him a ride to this random address in town. I pulled up outside, and it was junkies as far as the eye could see. A couple of cops posted up, and what looked like to be some kind of social service building. He ran inside for a minute, and came back out with a paper bag. I asked him what it was, and he confessed to me that his tolerance had gotten too high to do the hydros nasally. So he's been going to the safe injection site to get supplies he can IV with. He also confessed to me that he had bought some H from one of the junkies outside, just for the come down, in case he ran out of hydros by the time the blow was gone. He told me that he is just having his fun, and that I have nothing to worry about. That he's not some lazy junkie. He still has his shit together, etc. Then he admitted he's been banging it for a few weeks now. And last time he was at my place, the reason he was nodding out so harsh is because he was still nailing down the right IV dose. I pretended in the moment that I believed him, that it was no big deal. We went through that coke night with him sticking a needle in his arm every time he wanted to dose. Coke, hydros, and H direct into his veins. I hated every second of it. But I didn't want him to feel judged, so I kept my mouth shut. Told myself that if things got bad, I'd freak out then. And yet, every single day since that coke night, I can barely sleep. I keep thinking about this dark-ass road he's decided to walk down and genuinely think he's lost his fucking mind. This dude is like my brother, and I feel like he has a disease and I'm watching him die. He's so convincing when he talks, like it's all no big deal. But it is a big deal, right? Is there any such thing as a functional, recreational IVH user? Am I insane for even considering the fact that that could exist? I don't want to lose my brother, but I don't know what I can do to help him. I feel like if I push back on him about this, he will cut me out. I don't want him to feel alone. I want him to feel supported. But it's so beyond time for him to get clean. He's suffering. He's hurting himself day by day, and I don't know how to help him. Do I give him an ultimatum? Do I tell him that he's got to choose between me or the drugs? Do I tell his mom? I swear to God, if I do nothing and something does happen to him, I will never forgive myself. I just don't know what to do. I know that he's dealing with severe mental health struggles, but I feel like he's just running away. He won't talk to me or open up to me about any of it anymore. Ever since his dad, he hasn't been the same. I just want my brother back. Any advice that you guys can give me, I would really appreciate. I just feel so lost. Update, April 19th, 2021. Before I get into the update, I just want to quickly thank everyone who reached out. Your advice was reaffirming, and although I wasn't necessarily comforted by a lot of it, I certainly felt a clearer head. Things got a lot worse after writing my last post. Rodney's 21st birthday is at the end of this month, and when we still lived together, a massive hobby we both shared was record collecting. He got into it because I had a turntable and stereo in our townhouse, and he wanted to be able to have records of his own to listen to on it. He was unable/uninterested in getting his own after I moved in with my girlfriend, mostly because he was too preoccupied with his substance use. He'd still buy records with me, but he would only listen to them on my turntable at my house. I sold him my old stereo when I did some upgrading last summer, and the only thing he needed was a turntable of his own to start listening to his records again. I had the idea that if I got him his own turntable, maybe he would be able to start reconnecting with hobbies again and be able to get his mind right before the H use got out of hand. I got him a beautiful vintage deck and had it refurbished with a fresh cartridge installed. I decided to give it to him early, wrapped it and everything, and got him a few crates to store his records in since he could take them home now. I invited him over and didn't say anything about the gift. I wanted it to be a surprise. But unfortunately, he never showed up. I spam called/texted him, but got nothing. He eventually called me hours after he was supposed to come by, sounding absolutely high off his dome. Said he fell asleep and just woke up. I told him he had to come through the following day to make it up to me. He agreed. The next day, he got sent home from work as his boss said he was visibly inebriated and was a safety concern for the shop. He lost it on his boss and threw everything away by quitting on the spot. This was a new boss at his shop. His old boss, who he worked under for over half a decade, completed his entire apprenticeship with, got his certification with, recently moved up in the company, and isn't really there to advocate for him now. They tried to talk him out of it, but he walked out. Eventually, several hours late, he did make it to my house. He looked haggard, and his voice sounded all creaky and barely coherent. Before he would even talk to me, he said he needed to use the bathroom. Stayed in there for a half hour, and he came out barely able to stand straight and called his regional manager while completely blasted to yell about how offended he was by what his direct supervisor had done. I tried to get him off the phone, but he essentially just did everything he could to burn that bridge right to the fucking ground. They won't take his calls now. He opened his turntable. He cried when he saw it. Thanked me up and down and told me how much it meant to him. Then nodded off halfway through, expressing his gratitude. When he essentially came to, he didn't even remember the turntable interaction. Just kept yelling incoherently about how his boss only sent him home because he felt threatened and he jealous that Rodney has the highest numbers in the shop. He cycled through that for a few hours. It was excruciating. I mean, I guess I'm the idiot for thinking that buying him the one thing he needed to reconnect with his hobby would fix everything. It hurt my feelings a little bit though, admittedly, that he seemed to lose interest so fast. He was so far removed from logical thought, he didn't even seem like the same person. I felt it in that moment the way I assume people do when dealing with belligerent alcoholic family members. From that moment, I knew that I was going to have to confront him and tell him that if he wasn't willing to get clean, I was going to have to take a step back until he was. I dropped him off at home that night and helped him bring his stuff up. I needed time to think before going ahead with this. Said goodbyes and just cried into my girlfriend's arms for hours. I was just so angry. He knew better. I was furious that he had taken shit this far, and now I was going to lose one of the most important people in the world to me because of drugs. I felt so numb by the time I settled down. It was an awful night. I ended up telling our clean friend I mentioned in the last post, I'm just going to name him Jackson for simplicity, everything, as he worked for a rehab center in our city during his recovery for years and still had connections there. He basically agreed that I had to stop enabling Rodney and agreed with my plan to take a step back. I took the weekends and spent some time with two of my other close friends, just longboarding around a park in our town, enjoying the sunshine to clear my head. Yesterday, I went downtown and bought some records for myself and went to the beach with my girlfriend. It was all exactly what I needed just to feel human for a second. This morning, Jackson messaged me. Rodney had reached out to him and come clean about everything. The full story I told you guys, plus the fact that the only thing he can think about is shooting up and he needs to inject his full daily allotment of hydros at once just to feel anything. That he's been doing tons of H/fentanyl just to fight off withdrawals. And he admitted that he was in way too deep and was utterly terrified for his life. I messaged him immediately and just said good morning to him and that I hoped his weekend went well. Reminded him that I loved him. He told me right away about the conversation he was having with Jackson, and he told me he needed to go to rehab, how he needed help, how he just wanted to be happy with his life again and doesn't want to lose everything. We talked all morning this morning. Rodney told me he made it all the way through yesterday without shooting any H, but he cracked this morning. Scraped all his tins for anything he could get. He told me he felt so out of control of himself and he just needs support to get better. He's ready to get clean. He doesn't want to be just another junkie. We're still messaging back and forth for a little. I'm talking to Jackson in the back end. Jackson just told me he's pulled some strings to get Rodney in to the rehab that saved his life 4 years ago. He's getting admitted tomorrow morning. Rodney can't afford it, but somehow Jackson has negotiated a reduced rate for Rodney to go and has taken care of his first month's cost. A few grand. Not even joking. They're going to get him some income assistance and they're going to accept whatever the government is willing to provide, even if it doesn't pay the cost in full. I cried at my desk. I'm so damn proud of him for taking this step and, in a way, I'm also relieved that I didn't need to force it. My boy is still in there. He still cares about himself. He still loves me, and now he's going to get better. And I'm back crying at my desk, haha. Thank you again, all of you, for talking me through all of this on my last post. I appreciate every single one of you. Update, October 12th, 2022. The original post feels like a lifetime ago at this point, but I still get messages on this account from time to time asking about Rodney or for advice on how to help their own loved ones. And I figured now is as good a time as any to give everyone some closure. Jackson was able to make good on his promise and Rodney went to rehab, as planned, that next morning. He had picked up his prescription hydros he was getting at the time and injected all 6 of them right before going into the building. According to Rodney, they barely hit him. Jackson said it is some kind of rite of passage when addicts head into rehab. Gives them closure. Evidently, it didn't do any more damage than it already had. The rehab Rodney went to was impatient and was able to give him a lot of resources that he previously hadn't had access to. Counseling helped him sort out some issues he had, and a psychiatrist was able to prescribe him some medications to help level out his previously undiagnosed bipolar disorder. He was on some sort of medications for some time as well, but stopped at some point. He spent 3 months in first stage recovery, where he wasn't allowed out without a chaperone, but moved into a second stage house after the fact. Second stage functioned a lot like a halfway house, a sober living facility that they just had to be back at every night. He got a sponsor and took on his own sponsor after he got a 6-month chip. He continued living in second stage for over a year after that and became employed by the rehab facility he went to within a few months of being in second stage as a house manager. He kept that job until he began pursuing a college education in social work at the beginning of this year. He even made Dean's List in his first semester. Although almost everybody at his center said there's no such thing as a one and done, Rodney was. I spoke at his 1-year cake back in April, the week of his 25th. Tears were shed, laughs were had. It was a huge meeting with a tons, and it was really heartwarming to see so many people all there to support each other. It was also good for me as, because of Rodney's rehab being a decent distance from our old neighborhood, We don't get to spend nearly as much time together as we used to. That's fine by me. I'm just glad he's still here with a life to live. But I miss him. He moved out of his second stage house just under 2 weeks ago. He's staying with his mom while he finds his footing for his first stint outside the recovery world since he got clean. He's working hard on his studies. He never relapsed. He's insanely committed to his sobriety, as he should be. And most importantly, my boy is alive. And honestly, better off than he was to begin with. I'm glad that this is how it all ended up. Thank you to all the folks who reached out with supportive words when I first posted these. To anyone who reached out to me who were in similar circumstances, I hope your story has an equally happy ending. Same goes for anyone that ever reads these threads again. And if you ever need support, don't hesitate to reach out. There is hope. Thanks for reading, guys. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. A customer found my home, rang my doorbell for half an hour, and left when the cops arrived. Originally posted to Retail Hell. Originally posted on August 4th, 2025. I, 27 female, work in the cannabis industry, and this man has been a customer of mine for 4+ years. Our interactions have been very tame. He walks in, buys his pre-roll, and walks out. He is about 3 years younger than me, doesn't have a job, lives with his mom, and doesn't have a car, so he walks everywhere. Last Thursday, which was July 31st, he came around to buy as usual. About 5 minutes later, he comes back and says, "Do you mind if I sit down? It's just really hot out there." I didn't mind because the heat index was about 104 degrees and I was being polite. I gave him a drink and told him to rest until he was ready to leave. He was wearing a jacket in the middle of a heat wave. He ended up staying for an hour just chatting about random things like the economy, Ozzy Osbourne's death, things going on in his life. It wasn't until he started talking about trying to find a girl to go to the fair with, take on hikes, etc., that I find his being there suspicious. He seems like a really socially awkward guy, and in the 4 years he's been coming to the shop, I never felt threatened by him. I made it pretty clear that I'm working on myself, that I'm going back to school, working out at the gym, and focusing on myself. I told him if he was looking for a girl, he should try Hinge or Tinder because I've had luck finding last-minute dates there. I basically kicked him out and said, "Well, it's been nice talking to you, but I have to use the restroom." Before he left, he turned to me and asked if I was working on Saturday. I told him no, and then he asked me to the fair. I said, "No, I'm sorry, I already have plans." Fast forward to around 9:30 p.m. this evening. I was doing laundry, sitting on the couch when my doorbell rings. We live in condos, and normally people come to the back door where the parking lot is. The doorbell ringing is extremely abnormal. I didn't really think much of it. I thought maybe someone had ordered food and it got delivered to the wrong house. I put a load of laundry in and got into the shower. While I was in the shower, I heard someone pounding on the front door. I basically ignored it because I'm not getting out of the shower to answer it. But when I finally got out of the shower, my doorbell was ringing incessantly. Ding, 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 pound, 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 ding, ding, ding. I call my mom because I'm freaking out, and I'm thinking there might be an emergency in the neighborhood. But my neighbors know me, have my number, and would have come to the back door. She's on the phone with me, and she hears this racket too. My dog is raising hell, and there is someone very eager for me to open the door. I peek through the blinds of my spare bedroom, and lo and behold, there is my customer. The customer who asked me out, and I rejected. He's been there about 20 minutes now trying to get me to open the door. I live really close to work, within walking distance. He must have followed me home after work or seen me walking my dog in the neighborhood. Who knows how long he's been tracking my movements, but he's at my house on a Sunday night banging on my door and ringing the doorbell nonstop. I text my neighbor, who's basically like a mom to me, and she's at my house in seconds. We're at the back door, still hearing the doorbell and the pounding on the door. I'm shaking from head to toe. I'm disoriented because I don't know what the hell is going on, and she calls the cops for me. The cops are there within 5 minutes. From the time the last knock/ring sounded to the time the cops arrived was maybe 3 minutes. He must have booked it as soon as he saw the patrol officer. I gave my statement to the police, tell them about Thursday, tell them that my customer has been banging on my door for over half an hour. They call more squad cars to patrol the other neighborhoods. But after 4+ years of having this customer, I don't know his name. I have literally no idea who this guy is and what he wants from me. How long has he known where I live? How long has he been stalking me? What was his motive for ringing my doorbell for half an hour so late at night? Did he want to hurt me? Did he want to kill me? I don't know. All I did was tell him I was busy and I couldn't go to the fair with him. Sorry. I ended up calling my friend, and she's letting me crash at her place tonight, but I'm so uncomfortable about going home. I live alone with my dog, and I don't want to move, but if I cannot figure out this guy's name, there's nothing I can do legally. It's 3 a.m. now, and I'm combing through all security footage, transaction history, literally anything that can give me a hint at who he is. He told me he got fired from JCPenney, but I'm not sure they will divulge his information to me. I'm trying to gather enough evidence that the cops can track him down without his name, but I'm so terrified. I cannot sleep, cannot eat, cannot fathom going back to the house I call a home, knowing this man infiltrated my life with such demand. How will I ever go back to work? What am I to do? I had plans, I had ambitions to leave this job, but now I'm faced with the choice of leaving now or potentially putting myself in danger. I'm so sick of people. I'm terrified of everyone now. Because no matter how long you've known someone, how many times you may have interacted with them, they are not to be trusted. They are a threat to you, your life, and your personal space. I cannot stop crying, and I'm nervous about everything now. I don't know what to do anymore. I just want to live a normal life where I'm not threatened for declining a date. I just wanted to share my story. I'm going to do my best to file a restraining order, but I'm not sure that is enough. I fear I'll have to move, leave my good-paying job, and watch my every move from here on out. I don't feel safe anymore. And then some comments on this post read as follows. Someone says, "Please tell your boss/manager. He needs to be banned from the store because he has clearly crossed boundaries and he does not deserve to have any access to you at all." And the OP responds to that saying, "Already on it. My boss is extremely kind and understanding. He is helping me look through the backlog security footage to try and find this guy's name. He is familiar with this customer as he's been a longtime patron to our store." Another commenter says, "In what state did this happen? I only ask because every single dispensary I've ever been to in California, I've always had to show my ID that gets scanned by a front-end person on a computer before I can go to where the sales floor is. The computer database has all of my information, and every dispensary I've ever been in has tons of security cameras everywhere. Seems like you should be able to cross-reference the last time he came in with the time code on the video footage to find out his name in the system." And the OP responds saying, "Tennessee. It's a non-legal state, so things are unregulated. I scan an item marked 21 plus, and then I scan their ID, verifying their age. Unless they are a loyalty member, I don't have their name/number, but I'm pretty sure this individual is in our system. He pays with cash 95% of the time and never enters his loyalty number when he pays. I can only figure out the information I need if I can find security footage of him paying with card. It's been a bitch, still searching." And then the OP gives us an update, posted on September 3rd, 2025. She said, "I'd first like to say, I wasn't expecting as much engagement as I had on my last post. Thank you to everyone who validated my feelings and gave me helpful advice. If you haven't read that post, I suggest you do because it gives you all the information about what happened to me the night my customer came to my house. I'd like to clarify a few things from my last post that a lot of people had questions about. Although I work in the cannabis industry, I operate in a non-legal state, meaning I only have to scan IDs and not save the person's information each time they make a purchase. THC and Delta are regulated just like alcohol in my state, so I was unable to get the person's information solely from his ID. It's been a month, so I'd like to update everyone on how I'm doing, what has happened since, and what I'm doing to legally protect myself. I won't go into much detail, but I was able to find the person's information through our security camera in Square Business Portal. I found a time where he used a credit card, and since he was a loyalty member with us, his name was attached to the account. I paid for a background check and was able to find a full name and address, which I gave to the police, as well as all the security camera footage I had on the day he asked me out, and I refused. All the evidence was sent to the police and compiled into an evidence folder. The police officers visited his home, asked him questions about that night that he came to my home, and knocked on my door for half an hour. On body camera, he admitted to coming to my house, and his excuse was that she sold me gummies that made me high for 5 days. Like, that's not an excuse for coming to my home at 9:30 at night. I assure you, if there was a THC gummy in a non-legal state that made you high for 5 days, no one would not be able to keep them on the shelf. This was enough for the cops to allow me to press charges of harassment against him. In order for him to make bail, he had to sign a bond condition stating that he would not come to my house or my place of business. If he broke the bond condition, he would be rearrested and charged with aggravated stalking, which is exactly what happened today. After almost a month of not seeing this person, I saw him walking in front of my store. I didn't think much of it, although it did frighten me. I continued to help customers and did my job. He was not approaching the building, and there was no reason to lose my cool over just seeing him. That is, until he walked by again. I ended up locking the door and watching his movement from the window. He turned a corner and I figured, okay, he's leaving, it's nothing to worry about. I unlocked the door to resume business. I was sitting down at the computer when all of a sudden, he enters the shop and sits down in one of our waiting chairs. I wasn't paying attention to the outside, so he came out of nowhere and shocked me. I say to him calmly at first, "You need to leave or I am calling the cops." And he replies, "Why?" I just kept repeating myself and he keeps saying, why? I finally reach for the phone and I'm now screaming at him to leave, get the fuck out of here, I'm calling the cops. What irked me the most is not that he had the audacity to violate his bond condition and come to my store, but that he kept saying my first name. Like, please, blank, don't call the cops, blank, why? I didn't even know his name until I pressed charges against him and he acted like we were friends. Like he had every right to be at my place of business and that I wouldn't call the cops on him again because we had some sort of relationship. It all happened so quickly, and when he finally left, I locked the door again and proceeded to have a full-blown panic attack. I don't know if anyone else has experienced a panic attack, but it felt like someone had dunked my head underwater and I couldn't breathe. My entire body was shaking from head to toe and I was sobbing. I called the owner and he came shortly after. We phoned the police and they did exactly what they said they would do. I had to pull the security camera footage from the event and hand it over to the cops. They gathered another warrant out for his arrest and charged him with aggravated stalking, trespassing, and violation of a bond. He will have a GPS monitor attached to him if he makes bail again, and I will be notified if he comes anywhere near my place of work or home. They will also call me to notify me if he is bailed out. I will be filing an order of protection in the morning. I did not previously file one because I was under the assumption that he would not come back after the bond condition. Lesson learned. I've installed security cameras at the front and back of my house, have notified all my neighbors and the surrounding businesses by my work to be on the lookout for him. I truly was getting better. I was focusing on my mental health, playing a whole bunch of Animal Crossing, working out daily, focusing on treating myself with kindness, but after today, it's like I've been transported to day one all over again. I start a technical course on Monday, which will hopefully get me out of retail, but for now, I have to continue to work at my job and provide myself an income. I'd just like to say to all the men and women out there dealing with a customer who is a bit too friendly or has made advances towards you, to never take these things lightly. Please learn from my experience that no matter how long you've had a customer, how many times you've interacted with them, that they may have ulterior motives. I never thought he would come back, but he did. I genuinely thought the next time I would see him is at his court hearing when I testified, but he threw away his life today by trusting me not to call the cops. I will not apologize for protecting myself. He had it coming to him. I'm more angry than anything, but I'm eternally grateful that the local police have made an effort to keep this individual away from me. Please take care of yourself and trust your gut when it comes to people that are being suspicious. No one should have to go through what I'm going through, and it's all because I refuse to go on a date with the customer." And then some of the comments on this thread read as follows. "I've been through something similar. It has been a year, but when I see a car that looks like his, I have a mini heart attack. These people who do this shit to us are so unbelievably delusional. It is terrifying that they have such a romanticized interpretation of a situation that will literally haunt us for a long ass time." And then the OP responds to this comment saying, "I'm seeking therapy at the moment because every time I hear a knock or doorbell, even in a TV show, I immediately start getting anxiety. I've woken up from dreams where I'm haunted by the sound of a doorbell. PTSD is real, and it's wild to me that anyone, especially customers, inflict this kind of torture on an individual. I hope you're staying safe and have been able to live life to the fullest regardless of your trauma." And then the final comment on this post read, "So sorry to hear what is going on. It's a scary world out there. Sending air hugs, panic attacks sucks. Updates in a month or so, if no other news. Just want to make sure you are still okay and still around." And then the OP commented, "I'll be sure to update everyone about his trial, and he has been sentenced. Thank you for the support. Us retail folks really need to look out for one another. It's like the Wild West out here." And luckily, OP's okay for now, and hopefully the stalker gets, rightfully sentenced for what he's doing. I mean, we've read a few threads about stalkers, and you guys everyone watching, just be safe. If you have a weird feeling about someone, maybe trust your gut. Maybe they are doing something weird behind your back. And also for this post that we just read, it's so incredibly creepy that this guy could have been following her for who knows how long. I mean, he could have followed her home every single day for the past few years that he's been showing up at the shop. She just doesn't know. He could have been looking through windows. He could have been staring at her when she walks home from work, staring through the window. I mean, you don't know what these people do. And then maybe eventually he just gained the confidence to ring the doorbell. And who knows what would have happened if she opened the door for him. I mean, he could have rushed in. He could have hurt her. He could have said something weird. He could have, who knows, lured her out. I mean, you never know. So just trust your gut, be safe, guys, and on to the next one. Terrifying imposter. Don't trust authority figures blindly. Posted on r/legal advice. The post read as follows. "Hello, I'm 29 years old, happily married. My husband and I are college educated, have respectable, stable jobs, own a home in a nice neighborhood. We're basically as prepared as anyone can be to start a family. I'm almost 9 months pregnant with our first child. The problem is that 11 years ago, when my husband was a freshman in college, he was arrested for possession of marijuana. It was a large enough amount that he was charged with a Class D felony. Our jurisdiction is very harsh regarding marijuana, but not intent to deal. He pled guilty and did his time in probation without a problem, passing every drug test along the way. He has not touched marijuana or any other illegal substance since, and we barely ever drink, and haven't at all in over a year. I have no criminal record and have never done substances myself. It was a stupid mistake he made as a foolish 18-year-old, and he's worked hard to put it behind him. Someone has apparently contacted child services in our area and informed them that we are drug users. This accusation is being taken very seriously because of my husband's record. We have been as cooperative as could be with our caseworker. We've been interviewed, our home has been examined, and she found nothing remotely suspicious or incriminating. We have both taken drug tests and passed. Our caseworker says that everything looks just fine so far. Unfortunately, she also says that there's still the possibility that our child could be taken away from us in the labor and delivery ward, and that we won't be allowed to take her home. I was devastated and horrified to hear that. When I asked why, she said it was not up to her, and we'll have to wait and see, which made absolutely no sense to me. What gives? I feel like there's something she isn't telling me, but I have no experience with DCS and I'm not aware of anything we could have possibly done wrong. I know they will have to test my daughter for drugs when she's born, but she has not been exposed to drugs, nothing more than prenatal vitamins, not even Tylenol. And I already proved that by passing a drug test. I'm scared and confused. Do I need a lawyer? I had anticipating spending our savings on our new daughter / parental leave, but I will use that money for a lawyer if I have to. Thanks for reading, and thanks in advance for your help. And then the OP gave us a terrifying update. I was advised to get a lawyer right away. I was also advised that Indiana's DCS doesn't investigate pregnant women who don't already have kids, and that the woman claiming to be a social worker might be an imposter. I contacted and met with a lawyer and explained the situation to him. He seemed to agree that something was very fishy. To make a long story short, the woman handling our case has no affiliation with DCS. I'm still in complete shock. We went straight to the police. They are taking this very seriously. I can't give a lot of details because it's an ongoing investigation, but she seems to have been a very skilled / well-researched liar. I never would have known anything was amiss without the advice of this subreddit and the intervention of my attorney. I feel like a complete idiot, but the instinct to cooperate unquestioningly when faced with an intimidating authority figure is strong. I haven't had the baby yet. We're staying at a trusted family member's home until the baby is born. My OB in the hospital we'll be delivering at have already been informed of the situation and will be taking the appropriate security measures. I'm still freaking out, but we're taking every precaution for the safety of my child, and hopefully everything will turn out okay. Thanks again, everybody. Truly. And this final thread was so terrifying to me. I mean, a lot of you guys don't know, but a long time ago, I covered a conspiracy theory iceberg, and one of the conspiracy theories was fake social workers. So maybe that's not a conspiracy theory after all. I mean, I'm not going to say it's true, but this is such a scary story. Imagine you're going to have a kid, and a trusted government worker is, working with you, and they end up just being a complete stranger trying to steal your child away from you. That is a terrifying situation. And there's no more update from OP. That was posted 4 years ago, so most likely the OP will not have an update for us, but I really hope that the baby's all right, they're all right, but I just got goosebumps when I read that, it wasn't a social worker. It was just some liar. And imagine, how many people this person could have fooled. And they could have got something from the baby. They could have stole the baby. They could have done something. They just don't know. I just find that so scary. And I'm very glad that OP and hopefully her family are doing well now. But that is just an insane story and just terrifying. And that wraps up today's video of some terrifying Reddit threads. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. Consider joining the Patreon for just $5 a month to get early access, extra content, and early videos, and uncensored. Maybe I already said early videos twice. Oh well. But thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Would you like to see longer videos, shorter videos? Would you like to see more of these videos in the future? Just comment down below everything. I read every single one. And thank you so much for watching. This was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. The dark web is where humanity's darkest secrets hide. Illegal marketplaces, unimaginable crimes, and things society tries to erase all thrive here, often without consequence. Some sites were short-lived, some highly profitable, and some so disturbing even seasoned investigators couldn't handle them. And the people behind them rarely ever face punishment. And today, we're skipping the Silk Road and the stories you've heard 100 times over. Instead, we're diving into some unknown dark web websites. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we're starting with one that is beyond disgusting. Pink, and I can't say the other word because of YouTube's guidelines, so pink crystal. Think about the Breaking Bad substance they cooked up. So yeah, pink crystal. In 2015, the world's biggest adult content website, you know the one, implemented a method for people to report revenge videos on their site. From that point on, if you came across some illicit content of yourself, which I imagine is horrifying, one click will take it off the website. But not every website is so inclined to help you. In fact, some have made a business out of it. Revenge videos became a prevalent problem in the early 2000s. Before then, it wasn't unheard of. Many people were caught sharing illicit photos of their exes, but the difference is, these incidences were isolated, often shared among close friends, which is gross to say, but that's like max 20 people. Your standard loser didn't have the resources to humiliate their ex on the macro. But when the 2000s rolled around, people had more reach. Social media, chat forums, emails, cell phones, and cell phone cameras. Gone were the days of professional adult videos. Now anyone could make one. And worse, anyone could share it. Not with a couple of people, but with countless thousands. Now, with every bad breakup loomed the possibility that private images or videos could be leaked onto the internet. And I hate to say this, but there's a ton of people who couldn't care less about consent. In fact, they enjoy non-consensual exposure. Now, thankfully, this stuff doesn't survive on the surface web anymore. Most adult websites have safeguards in place to prevent it, but the dark web has no such rules. For the purposes of this video, I can't say the actual name of the website, so we'll refer to it as Pink Breaking Bad Crystal, or Pink Crystal for short. Pink Crystal was a website dedicated to revenge videos. It was built in a similar way to 4chan, designed as an image board, where users could post illicit photos. But like we just discussed, none of these photos were posted consensually. In fact, some of them weren't even acquired consensually. I'm not sure of the actual details, but essentially, Pink Crystal users would hack into people's accounts and steal their intimate photos. One example is a woman named Shelby, I won't say her last name for privacy reasons, who actually sued Pink Crystal. She was a college student at the time, living in Texas and enjoying an uneventful life, but her days of peace were about to come to an end. According to court documents, Pink Crystal somehow gained access to Shelby's private photos, ones that had never been shared with anyone, and posted them. When Shelby found out, she was horrified, obviously. She contacted the administrators to take it down, and they not only refused, they harassed her. How, you might ask? Well, they had a Twitter page where they would post about people who were being exposed. I'm not joking. These people were demented. They would take non-consensual videos, post the links to Twitter, and then tag the person's social media pages, rallying their fan base to go harass these women. Shelby received death threats, threats of assault, and by the time she had discovered the images, it was too late. The damage was done. Previously, she had dreams of joining law enforcement. Of her own admittance, the dream was made impossible by Pink Crystal. To make matters worse, the lawsuit failed. In similar cases, the defendant often receives a settlement from the people who operate the website, and those people typically receive jail time because revenge videos are criminal. But there was a problem with Pink Crystal. No one knew who was operating it. To this day, no known person has ever been charged for the indecency allowed on Pink Crystal. When an official investigation began, they tried to track down the owners. When they discovered that whoever was running it was functionally untraceable, domain registration, admin accounts, operator records, all purposefully obscured. How? Well, the host company, Katz Global Media, offered a service to register untraceable domains. Even they couldn't figure out who these people were. After the attempted lawsuit, Pink Crystal was under heavy scrutiny. Before then, they operated on the surface web, But after a public backlash, the cowards retreated to the dark web to avoid a shutdown. Now, normally, a shutdown wouldn't matter too much. After all, they're just sick people looking for a rush. But Pink Crystal was different. Pink Crystal was monetized. Most of the time, these kinds of websites run banner ads and pop-ups. So even though we don't know an exact figure, we can use similar websites like Is Anyone Up to approximate their earnings. Is Anyone Up was a similar revenge video site, the first one to ever hit the mainstream. And because of its shutdown in 2012, we know that the owner, Hunter Moore, was making $13,000 a month on ad revenue alone. For 2 more years, the site continued to torment its victims from the dark recesses of the internet until 2014, when the FBI, in action with Europol, successfully shut down Pink Crystal. Over the years, the anonymous owners have attempted to relaunch the site to no avail. Luckily, today they are permanently offline. The Iron Troll website has archived some Twitter posts. All of the names and links have been redacted or are inactive. But scrolling through, it's easy to see how horrible this website truly was. I can only imagine the lasting impact it had on the people who were exposed. And unfortunately, I'm sure there are other websites just like Pink Crystal surviving today, somewhere down deep in the dark web. Archetype market. Now, this might just be because I'm a YouTuber or I'm chronically online, but from my perspective, everyone and their grandma knows about the Silk Road by now. We've talked about it before on the channel, and for the few of you who haven't heard of it, the Silk Road was a website running from 2011 to 2013 that operated as an online drug marketplace. And frankly, I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of writing about it, and I think it ties into a problem YouTube is having when it comes to dark web material. When the internet was new and scary, the websites hosted on untraceable browsers seemed like the most horrifying things online. But as the internet got older, and I did too, I started to notice that most of the videos talking about dark web websites were the same old, tired, recycled ones we saw 10 years ago. It's interesting to say that something like the internet's first drug dealer marketplace, hidden from the surface web, feels more like history to talk about than an actual story. And personally, I don't like covering old news. So when I came across Archetype Market in my research, I was very excited to share it all with you. Let's start at the beginning. A boy is living his life in Germany. He was young when the Berlin Wall fell, 5 years old, and grows up in the shadow of poverty it created. He's in close contact with drugs from an early age and begins experimenting. When I was younger, I thought I was invincible. I thought I was smarter than everyone else, so I skillfully ignored every warning and did what I felt like every day. Since I was a teenager, I've tried different drugs, but I have to say that alcohol was the worst drug for me. But this is probably also due to the environment and the circumstances. But like any young man, he wants to create something of his own. Him and his buddies get drunk and start thinking up ideas for a website. Something new. Something that would bring them out of poverty. But it never gets anywhere. He's stuck. Then, at the age of 20, he began his journey with hallucinogens. When I consumed hallucinogens for the first time, I felt like someone had just given me the gift of critical thinking. I started to question a lot of things. Firstly, why I'm drunk almost every day. I realized that I'm very far from what I imagined for my future when I was still a child. As a child, I always wanted to practice a social profession and do something good for the world and for my fellow human beings. But at that time, I actually did exactly the opposite. I showed antisocial behavior and got on everyone's bad side as best as I could. I think that was also my ego death. I realized and perceived many things that I did not perceive before. After my first trip, I wanted to do it again, quickly, and took 4 more trips within a few months. After the 4th trip, I had a new self-image and didn't want to drink alcohol anymore. I stopped drinking alcohol overnight and haven't had a drink for over a year. I started to focus on the goals of my childhood. And of course, I have also set myself some new goals. Cue the Silk Road. The boy, now a man, sees the work of Ross Ulbricht, creator of the Silk Road, and is inspired. He starts to develop his own ideology, a belief that drugs shouldn't be illegal. He believes that drugs in all forms aren't necessarily evil. They aren't good, they aren't bad, they just are. And he begins to believe that drugs shouldn't be criminalized in Europe. After all, it's a victimless crime. If he created a marketplace, it would be to further his political ideal, that true freedom means illicit substances are legalized. But he doesn't like the actions of Ross Ulbricht. It was clear to our young man here that Ross was motivated by greed. He believed that a new website could do some good, give freedom to the people, and destigmatize the industry. All of what I just described was from a German interview conducted with our young man in 2021. He had developed an archetypal sense of manhood. He wanted to do what he believed was his duty. His name was Mark Hegemeister, and he founded Archetype Market, the longest running online drug marketplace ever created. Launched in 2020, Archetype Market hit the ground running, wanting to be different from the Silk Road. Arms trafficking wasn't allowed. No personal listings. It was an unadulterated online store solely for drugs. The website had 6 vetted distributors, covering a couple of different bases. I won't list what drugs were sold. I don't want YouTube to flag me, but they sold most of the popular narcotics we see today. Mark studied the Silk Road and learned from Ross Ulbricht's mistakes. He made sure no communications were done from personal emails, no identifying information was on the site, and everything was deeply encoded. He implemented a cryptocurrency called Monero for transactions to keep everything totally anonymous. Most other drug marketplaces today are taken down quickly, but because of his efforts, Archetype Market survived for 5 years, which is basically unheard of in 2025. But it wouldn't last forever. Europe was hot on his heels. Agencies all over the continent were on the hunt for this new drug lord. Ideology or not, good intentions or not, he needed to be taken down. The fact of the matter is, freedom or not, people die on drugs. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives to the free-minded ideology Mark Hegemeister supported, and unfortunately for him, he was the top marketplace on tour, and with that exposure came his downfall. Operation Deep Sentinel was born. A sentinel is a guard, a soldier, whose job is to keep watch over something and keep the people safe. Operation Deep Sentinel was a joint effort between Europol and police agencies from 44 different countries to protect the people and clean up the dark web. And after half a decade, they finally seized the website and arrested Mark in June of 2025. Now, let's not get it twisted. Mark was a drug dealer, plain and simple. His actions probably resulted in deaths, countless families being damaged or destroyed, and I only wish he would have used his passion for something else. Because maybe he could have done the world some good. But today, Mark is in jail, awaiting trial, and Archetype Market joins the graveyard of similar marketplaces, never to return. Welcome to video. Of all the entries on this list, this one is the most sickening, bar none. In June of 2015, a website launches on the Tor browser, and very quickly, it picked up traffic. Their service, selling videos. Many videos. Some had been circling around the internet for years. Some were brand new. But the owner wanted a place to keep them all. A marketplace for sharing these videos to the widest possible audience. And as you may have guessed by now, these videos were terrifying and about children. Now, I want to say really quickly, I read the comments, I hear you all, and I don't want to keep saying cheese pizza, but unfortunately, even the more respectful term you've all been recommending, gets flagged by YouTube. I know many of you have been requesting I begin using the other term, and I want to. I want to be as respectful as possible when covering these cases, but unfortunately, YouTube doesn't like us even using those terms. And with that said, I think stories like these are very important to talk about. Exposing these disgusting people is one way to help combat the problem, and the only way I can do so is by using cheese pizza as the acronym. So I'm sorry in advance. I'm going to try to say it as scarcely as possible. Now, most websites that host cheese pizza are small. It's not very often we hear about one with more than a couple thousand articles of cheese pizza material, which is crazy to say. Obviously, any cheese pizza material is terrible, but a couple thousand is unfortunately the standard. But it doesn't typically get above that because these kinds of websites garner ridiculous attention, which is disgusting to say the least, but law enforcement puts the boot on the neck of these sites with frequency. Just this year, there was something called Operation Grayskull, which executed an effort to shut down 4 dark web websites that hosted cheese pizza. In total, 18 people were arrested, receiving 300 years of jail time altogether. The Assistant Attorney General, Matthew R. Galetti, had this to say: "Today's announcement sends a clear warning to those who exploit and abuse young people. You will not find a safe haven, even on the dark web." Thanks to the relentless determination of our prosecutors and law enforcement partners, we have exposed these perpetrators for who they are, eliminated their websites, and brought justice to countless victims. So it's very clear, law enforcement wants these people arrested, and they put a lot of effort and energy into shutting down these websites quickly. But Welcome to Video was different. I mean, it makes Operation Grayskull look like a shoplifting case, because Welcome to Video wasn't just pushing a couple of videos. Like I said, this was designed to be a marketplace, and Welcome to Video was a very successful, very insidious marketplace. They hosted over 200,000 videos. Yeah, you heard me correctly. 250,000 videos on one website. And those numbers don't turn up overnight. No, this website was active for years, and they had an unbelievable 1.2 million registered users. I wish I were making this up. It makes me genuinely sick to say that out loud, but unfortunately, it's true. There were 1.2 million accounts on Welcome to Video. Just for reference, if a podcaster on Spotify had 1.2 million followers, they'd be in the top 15 most popular podcasts on Spotify. The city of Philadelphia has a population of 1.5 million. That's how disgustingly large that number is. In researching this video, I also discovered that this website had memberships, which is terrifying in and of itself, with most of these users having the free membership and 4,000 being paid members. Sick, absolutely sick. A lot of these videos were acquired from another site that was shut down called Avesno, but the growth that Welcome to Video saw was undeniably massive. As more users joined, they uploaded their own materials until an unfathomable 45% of its videos were unique, over 100,000. That's unheard of, and it also means that these weren't recycled videos. The crimes were happening live. Active exploitation on the macro. When the US government became familiar with this website, needless to say, they wanted to catch the monsters responsible. And that's not to say other governments weren't angry as well. This website was a global issue, and its victims spanned continents. But the US didn't waste a second. Homeland Security and the IRS started working to identify them. Thankfully, the servers for Welcome to Video weren't very secure, and they were able to track the IP back to a rough location, South Korea. Now, this was a good start, but in order to pinpoint who exactly was running the website, they'd have to dig deeper. Now, Welcome to Video took payments through Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as we all know, is an anonymous currency, and most people think it's untraceable, but it isn't. Not really. You see, if you tried to track any cryptocurrency from the surface, it wouldn't go anywhere. You'd be chasing a ghost. But this is the IRS and Homeland Security we're talking about, and they had an idea: the blockchain. If they could follow the transactions through the blockchain, through the dark web, by surveilling suspects with less secure networks, they'd be able to pinpoint who was receiving all the money. And in March 2018, 3 years after Welcome to Video was published, which is 3 years too goddamn late, South Korean resident Son Jung-woo was arrested for creating the now infamous website, along with 337 other people. Those 337 people weren't just active users. During the investigation, they discovered that a lot of the videos were from active crimes of exploitation, and each of them was arrested. In this process, many children were saved. Happy ending, right? Nope. The guy is free today. How, you might ask? Well, when he was convicted of the crime, South Korean courts gave him an 18-month sentence for the production and distribution of cheese pizza. That's it. Now, the maximum sentence for cheese pizza in South Korea was 5 to 7 years, which is still unacceptably low, but he got a lighter sentence because he needed to support his family. I wish I was lying. The US attempted to extradite him so we could charge him here, but South Korea refused. When he was released after a year and some change, they charged him with fraud for gambling with the cheese pizza money, giving him another 24 months for a total of 42 months or 3.5 years in prison. Now, keep in mind, the maximum sentence at that time in South Korea was 5 to 7 years. That's it. Nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Now, if this makes you ridiculously angry, you aren't alone. The citizens of South Korea were absolutely infuriated by how short this monster's sentence was. And eventually, they took it to the Supreme Court of South Korea, who later raised the maximum sentence time from 5 to 7 years to 29 years, which, yeah, glad they changed it, but that doesn't detract from the fact that this man is walking free today. He can't leave his country or he'll be rearrested, but he's free. I have nothing else to say about this website except I'm glad it's gone. And I wish the other 1.2 million people involved would face some consequences, but today it looks like that isn't gonna happen. But at least the laws got changed in South Korea, so maybe next time more people don't have to get hurt. And more people like Son Jung-woo can be properly punished. Carter. As you all know, the United States and Russia have been strong allies for 80 years, and nothing has ever impacted their relations negatively. If that joke wasn't obvious, here's the plain English. Our governments have been at odds since before they invented sliced bread, and when it comes to issues online, including the dark web, neither nation sees eye to eye. And the story we're about to cover takes this conflict to a whole other level. We're talking about Roman Selznev. Now, I wasn't familiar with this man either, or his website, Carter, before researching this video, so let's discuss this man's timeline, and I'll try to fill you in as best as possible. Roman Selznev was born in 1984, the fourth son of Valery Selznev, a member of Russia's Duma. Now, the Russian Duma is essentially the country's parliament, established in 1993. For our US listeners, it's like the House of Representatives. The Duma is responsible for debating and passing legislation that goes into law, so Valery was a big deal, and still is. Not much else is known about his early life, but being the son of a powerful figure, we can imagine he had a pretty alright childhood, and he really liked computers. Like, a lot. There are no official records of him until 2003, when at the young age of 19, he began his career as a multinational hacker. At one point in time, there was a dark web website called Carter Planet, a forum for selling and trading stolen information. Today we hear about this type of crime all the time. Servers are infiltrated, Facebook gets a data hack, and suddenly people are getting charged $10 for a drink they never bought in a country they've never visited. Now, Roman was an expert at stealing people's information. He would hack background check websites and retrieve their data, stuff like social security numbers and criminal histories, and he would then sell them on Card Planet. He was making so much money. In fact, he hired an employee, but there wasn't a lot of business in social security numbers. No, the real money was in the plastic. Credit card numbers. Roman worked with his employee to develop a software that would scan the internet for something called MSRDP open ports. Essentially, he was looking for weak security on administrative networks. Think of it like trying to break into a house. The front door has a state-of-the-art security system, but the back door has a cheap padlock. That cheap padlock was the MSRDP open port. He could connect to it remotely, break the lock, so to speak, and retrieve all the data without ever getting found out. And these networks had financial information, specifically credit card numbers. But there were a lot of networks to cover, lots and lots of houses, and most of them only had a couple of numbers. Roman needed a way to sift through the worthless ones and find the money, large businesses with lots of recorded numbers. So he contacted another hacker, Bad B, and paid him to write an automated program that would look for credit card numbers across multiple networks. With this program, Roman and his employee scoured the internet, and after a couple of days, they received their first credit card dump, and he sold it to Bad B for thousands. They operated successfully for a year, stealing thousands of credit card numbers across multiple nations. Their target? Businesses, banks, financial institutions. Eventually, they developed malware that could crack even more sophisticated security, and they were raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars by the end of the year. But in 2004, the waters were getting choppy for Roman and Bad B. The operators of Card Planet realized that law enforcement had caught their scent, and they shut down the website. Left without a way to make money, Roman looked for another home to sell his stolen goods. That's when he discovered Carter. Carter was the functional successor to Card Planet, but now new and improved. It operated like the eBay of credit card theft, with hundreds of vendors and thousands of buyers selling millions of dollars worth of stolen credit cards. If you ever watched the news and wondered where all those stolen credit card numbers were going, this was where. A dark web criminal syndicate orchestrating multiple million-dollar heists across every nation on planet Earth, operating on Carter. And Roman was a big player. He posted ads across the website, specifically on the Card Dump forum. He had a lot of money by this point and was considered one of the most trusted thieves on the site. But he had a problem. Hacker Bad B, his longtime partner and friend, was getting jealous. Roman was making a ludicrous amount of money using a program Bad B had devised, and before long, their relationship began to sour. Friendship curdled into bitter hate, and an all-out war began. Anywhere Roman posted his ads, Bad B posted more. They wrestled over the sale of stolen credit cards and tried to screw the other at every opportunity, talking bad about the other and their credibility. It was a nasty, drawn-out battle between the two thieves, and before long, they were the only real players on Carter, the two master thieves fighting for the throne. Then, in 2010, Roman caught a lucky break. Bad B was arrested on a US warrant in France and was extradited on charges of fraud. The battle was won. The war was over. And Roman, left with no competition, was the crown prince of credit card fraud. And for 4 years, Roman reaped the rewards. He traveled the world, hired more employees, and was richer than ever. The smallest estimate for how much money he made is $17 million. He stole over 2.9 million credit card numbers for a total cumulative theft of over $169 million plucked from the pockets of everyday civilians. That's right, he was single-handedly responsible for the theft of over $169 million, making him one of the most devastating thieves in modern history. Until 2014. You see, the United States were made aware of Carter about 2 years before Bad B was arrested. And this time, they weren't watching from the back lines. They had a front row seat. The Secret Service had infiltrated Carter and spent years following breadcrumbs to catch these criminals. They went undercover, buying credit card dumps, both from Bad B and from Roman. Eventually, they were able to track down Bad B, but Roman was more difficult. Roman was smart. He used multiple usernames to disguise his identity. Online, he wasn't Roman Selzenev, he was NCUX, Track 2, Bulba. One name was literally just Tupac. By hiding his title, it made it much more difficult to pin him down. In fact, initially, they believed Roman was actually multiple people. But Roman made some mistakes along the way. Firstly, across all of his aliases, the pricing never changed. This was odd. Most vendors had different pricing to compete with the competition. Roman and Bad B had different pricing. Think of it like McDonald's and Burger King. They were trying to outdo one another to sell the most of their product, but these aliases always had the same pricing. And over the years, the Secret Service tracked his writing style in communications with each of the 4 personas. All of this made it abundantly clear. These weren't 4 separate hackers. It was one man operating a multi-million-dollar business with very little help. So, how did they catch him? Well, after they buy a credit card dump, they'd collect all of the institutions that had the cards saved online. When they did this, over the tens of thousands of instances, they were able to narrow it down to a couple of institutions. From there, it was clear this wasn't a team effort, again, reinforcing the theory that this was one man. And remember when I was talking about MSRDP open ports? The cheap padlocks that Roman used to infiltrate these institutions? Well, Roman was remotely connecting to the networks from his personal computer. And in doing so, he left behind key information, the digital version of a physical footprint. He left behind his IP address. Even when he used VPNs, systems for obscuring his IP address, he would reuse the same systems, hosting companies and domains, all under the same aliases. And with this information, the Secret Service was able to get a name and a location: Roman Selzenev, the Maldives. In 2014, in coordination with the Maldives government, he was arrested by local Maldivian authorities and extradited to the United States. The dark web mecca of credit card fraud, Carter was finally shut down, and the crown prince of credit card fraud was finally in custody. But the story isn't over yet. So far, we've talked about the US interest in catching Roman, but what about his home country, Russia? Well, although the war between the two thieves was long since over, the war between the nations was just beginning. News broke all over the world. The United States made another arrest on a dark web kingpin, and another website shut down. The people were safe once again. But when Russia got word, they had a different story to tell. They called it an illegal kidnapping by the United States. According to them, Roman was their concern and their citizen, so the United States had no right to imprison him without Russian due process. They asked where Roman was being held, or where he had even been arrested, and the US refused to give up the information. The Russian government was pissed. To them, this was an incredible disrespect. Eventually, through the American legal system, the Department of Justice eventually revealed that Roman had been arrested in the Maldives, and this continued to exacerbate the national conflict. You see, the Maldives doesn't have an extradition treaty with the US, and still doesn't to this day. The government of the United States negotiated with them specifically to arrest Roman and shut down his dark web enterprise. But the Russians considered this a departure from international legal norms. However, the US was prepared to defend itself. Back in 2009, when they discovered Carter, they believed Russian citizens might be involved. So they reached out to the FSB, which is essentially Russia's FBI, and requested assistance in capturing the criminal who would later steal hundreds of millions of dollars from basically every nation on the planet, Roman Selznev. But Russia denied the request. They refused to help. In light of this, the US stated, "We had no other option. You didn't want to arrest him, so we did." So for years, he was held in the United States awaiting trial until 2016, when Roman was found guilty of wire fraud, device fraud, credit card fraud, illegal access to protected computers, and the compromise of over 2 million credit cards. He was charged with 27 years in federal prison, but he didn't spend 27 years in prison. Don't forget, Roman's father was a Russian politician. This wasn't some random kid. This was the Russian equivalent of a senator's son, and they wanted him back. Over the years, the Russian government continued to make a stink about the arrest, calling it politically motivated and unjust. But Russia knew they had an ace in the hole. Russia had a couple of prisoners we wanted back. Among them, 2 journalists, a handful of activists, and a US Marine named Paul Whelan. Whelan was arrested in 2018 in Moscow and charged with espionage, a charge the United States vehemently denied. In fact, Paul was initially told upon his arrest in Russia that he was being detained for the express purpose of a prisoner exchange. In exchange for these prisoners, Russia wanted a couple of people, including Roman, a business fraudster, a couple of spies, and the famous Russian assassin Vadim Krasikov. In 2024, the exchange was agreed upon, and Roman was released to Russia. When he arrived by plane in Moscow, he was met by Vladimir Putin himself, and to our knowledge, he now walks free. And alright guys, that wraps up some unknown dark web websites. I really enjoyed this video. This was a little bit different than the previous dark web websites. Like the title even says, these were unknown. These were a little bit more obscure. These were more unique, so hopefully you enjoyed. If you did find this video interesting, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy others, so check out some other videos on the channel. I appreciate you guys watching. It means the world. Thank you so much for watching, and this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel, and today we're getting into some terrifying Reddit confession threads. You guys have been loving the Reddit confession thread videos, so I'm going to keep making them as long as you guys keep watching them. So comment down below and let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. But today, oh boy, we have some terrifying and horrifying confession threads. I mean, really, really disturbing stuff, and these are some for real confessions. I just have to leave it at that. I don't want to spoil too much, but this video will be long enough already, so please like the video, subscribe to the channel, sit back and relax, and without further ado, let's get into some terrifying Reddit confession threads. I had an affair and killed my wife. Now I'm raising our toddler alone. My wife and I met when we were in our late teens. She had an extremely traumatic upbringing and severe alcohol abuse issues with occasional drug use. She would drink to blackout and was physically violent with me during these periods, and during binges would make occasional S-word attempts or threats, and was physically violent with others. She would flirt with and hang out with other men while blackout drunk. On 3 occasions throughout our relationship, I saw her kissing other men while falling down drunk. She would constantly accuse me of cheating despite me being totally faithful. For those who will say she chose to drink and is responsible for her drunken actions, that is not how addiction works. What she did choose was to not seek help for herself and play an active role in her recovery. So ultimately, she is responsible. But her behavior while drunk doesn't hurt as bad because I know it was driven by illness. What did hurt was that she didn't address the causes of this and continued to minimize, deny, and dismiss the significance of her past on her drinking and her drinking on our lives. This was a source of conflict, but ultimately I chose to support her journey, love her, and support her as best as I could, and hope things improved over time, and as we aged and matured together, she would one day be ready to face her past and address the root causes of her drinking. As we aged, the frequency decreased, but it was still really bad. She had awful social anxiety, and we were not able to socialize with my friend group because the results would be awkward or embarrassing situations due to the excessive drinking. Bouts of S-word threats or attempts decreased significantly, but binge drinking continued and occasional violence still happened. I smoked a lot of weed, but was functional and successful in my career. I do not drink and was not physically abusive. I was emotionally abusive. For example, I would yell at her the day after she did something like run off into the night drunk and go into traffic, hit me or someone I love, and so on. It's worth noting that I grew up with an alcoholic father, and then my mom was with a man for my high school years who was alcoholic and abusive, and that my father eventually OD'd and died when I was a young adult. My wife and I moved about 2,500 miles across the country to my home city with the goal of me starting a business and us getting away from people and places that were very triggering for her. It went pretty well. She went back to work in her profession to help cover bills while I started my company. Prior to having our child, she worked but did not drive. I would drive her to work, drive to meet her at lunch, drive to pick her up. I began earning so much money that we lost more by me driving her around than she would earn. And as a couple, we were further ahead with her not working. She stopped working and said she drank because she was bored. If she was going to be home, she wanted to be a mom. She swore she would stop drinking to have a child, and she did. We got pregnant and she stopped entirely. The pregnancy was awful. The birth was complicated and mid-pandemic. We had no family support. I was busy with my company. She was overwhelmed being the 24/7 caregiver to a demanding infant/toddler. We stopped having relations or intimacy times due to her pregnancy difficulties and didn't resume due to birthing injuries. I stayed faithful and dealt with my intimate needs myself. Sidebar is that I am a very intimate person and had always struggled with our intimate relationship. At times when she would get drunk and become abusive, I would consider straying. I went as far as going for a walk with a girl once, but felt awful and told the girl I had to leave. When our son was about a year old, she was clearly feeling overwhelmed, which was very reasonable. Even the most functional person would feel overwhelmed being with an infant 24/7 with no friends, no family, and a disengaged husband. She started drinking again as a result. But at the time, I didn't see how this was a symptom of her lack of support. All I saw was that my son was going to grow up like I did, and she was breaking her promise without trying to get help. One night around 2 a.m., I heard noises in our bedroom and found her passed out drunk with our toddler crawling around on the floor. I went in and grabbed our toddler and angrily yelled, "What are you doing? If you passed out with him on the chair, you could have suffocated him," and started leaving with him. She got angry and punched me in the face and pulled our toddler from my arms. I completely lost my temper, and for the first time ever, I hit her back. I hit her like a father would hit the back of a child's head when they're misbehaving. It was fairly hard. She started crying. Something broke inside me in that moment. The level of abuse, dysfunction, my disappointment in myself for hurting her, for hurting our child, for bringing him into this environment and failing to make life safe and stable for him, it all flooded me. I had become a horrible, hateful person. I had so much resentment for my wife, my partner in life, my co-parent, that I hit her. I felt sick to my stomach, and I knew that I would never do something like this again. If I ever got near that point, I need to leave. Not just the physical space, but the relationship. The next day we talked, and she said she deserved it and knew she needed to change. More of the same. Not addressing the issues, but feeling shameful and swearing off drinking for a time, only to eventually build enough resentment and stress to justify returning. Infrequently, binge nights happened, but they were limited to her playing loud music, which was upsetting, but I did my best to ignore it and try to sleep. We moved to a new house in the fall of 2022, and things were good in terms of drinking. She didn't really drink at home at all. We had intimate times maybe twice a month, but it felt like a chore and seemed to hurt her. Life was a grind. I would get up, work, come home, do childcare, and she would try to see me for a bit after our toddler fell asleep. Usually, we'd be together for 10 to 20 minutes before she would wake up screaming. It was so stressful that she would sometimes not try to see me and just stay in bed scrolling for a couple of hours before sleeping herself. I could see that it frustrated and overwhelmed her too. We had zero time to ourselves. Her family was not functional and in another part of the country. My family had all passed away. She didn't want any babysitters until our toddler could speak clearly and was mature enough to share any situations of mistreatment. I felt like a paycheck. She felt like a mom robot. She was trying hard, staying sober, and she got her license and she could drive him to some appointments. I tried talking to her about driving to appointments across the city so I didn't need to leave work. But she was too nervous with our toddler in the car. She tried talking to me about being more involved and present. All she wanted from me was to get up with them at 7 to 8 a.m. They slept together in our bed, so she was alone at night and alone getting up in the morning. I slept in the basement. I would often work or game until 3 to 4 a.m. and get up around 9 to 10 a.m. I asked her to move him into the baby room, but she wouldn't because she felt anxious that she was too far away at night, unable to respond in time for a fire, wouldn't hear a medical issue, etc. I was upset that I paid for a 4-bedroom house in an expensive area and we used 1 bedroom. She was upset about my lack of support. I was upset about her lack of connection. She was too. I asked for therapy, but she refused. I started developing feelings for a coworker. I told myself that if I hit midlife and dedicated 15 years to this person and drinking was still a problem, and on top of that, I'm developing feelings for another woman and feeling like my attempts to resolve things with my wife weren't working, that I needed to end the relationship before I cheated. I brought up that I was in a really scary mental state, that I wasn't doing well mentally, and that I needed her to hear me. I needed connection. She got angry and refused to do anything until I stepped up. She brought up all the wrong I had done. The next time she drank, she played loud music while I was trying to put our child into bed. I texted her about it and she told me something like, "Now you know how it feels to struggle alone as a parent, bud." The next day, I told her I wanted a divorce. Her reaction scared the shit out of me. She was so sad and scared and shaking, scream crying, begging me to stay. I felt so fucking bad. So awful. So guilty. It hurt me so deeply to see the woman I love hurting so bad. I knew I was developing intense feelings for another woman and felt checked out. But how the fuck do I just leave the mother of my child, who has no other supports, in this state? At the same time, how do I continue? I was totally tapped out. I had nothing left. I was so sad, but also so angry that she didn't go into therapy with me before, that I went through more than a decade of intense abuse and infidelity. She refused to address it, but now that something is hurting her. She is totally invested in therapy, and that I don't want to was seen by her as unfair, not giving her a chance, abandoning and betraying her. It was so hard. I told her I don't want to reconcile until I see her do the work to address the root causes of her drinking. No more caving and forgiving because of promises to be better. I need to see it first. My feelings for my coworker were getting stronger. As we worked closely together, I told myself I need to either forget about other women and totally dedicate myself to my wife altogether and accept a lifetime of struggle with these issues, or try connecting with another woman to see what it's like. I began opening up about my emotional pain to my coworker. She told me she was going through a breakup, and I lied and said I was too. I took my ring off at work so she could be more open to talking to me deeply. I thought I would wait until my wife had done some therapy and cut off the conversations with my coworker if my wife put in the effort and made progress. My wife wouldn't go to therapy solo or Alcoholics Anonymous. She said she doesn't need it and was only interested in going with me. This made it seem to me like she wasn't focused on her drinking or her trauma, only in reconciling. To reconcile, I needed her to make that shift. I was growing closer and closer with my coworker, and we started going for drives outside of work at night. My car broke down in a remote spot, and it was in the middle of a cold snap in March. The tow truck was a 2-hour wait. We huddled up, and I put my arm around her. I hadn't had intimate relations in weeks and was not thinking clearly. I started touching her intimately, and we had intimate time. It was very fast, only a couple of minutes. As soon as it was done, the tow truck came. I took her home and went home myself. I felt sick, and I went to what was now my basement apartment and cried while I cleaned myself. I reached out to a male friend who told me to deny until I die. I thought my wife would commit S-word if I told her, but I wonder if we could have worked through it. Maybe I was just selfish and a coward. Weeks went by, and I did couples therapy with my wife. I wasn't able to invest fully because of my connection with my coworker. Even without her, I don't know if I would have been able to succeed in couples therapy. When I brought up the years of unaddressed abuse, resentment, and betrayal, my wife would fairly point out that it was years ago. I'm just focusing on the negative. Let's move forward. We couldn't seem to focus on and get validation about my past hurts with her, and she didn't want to do AA or therapy individually for her trauma. I stopped going to couples therapy and started engaging with my coworker more. I told my wife that I needed space to think and just to see if my feelings change. This was true in a way, but I didn't give her a fair shot at all because there was no space for my feelings to change. She stayed sober and was an absolute rock star mom and partner. I feel so fucking awful for being unfaithful to her. She caught on and started finding the evidence. She found my coworker's hair on my shirt and asked me about it. I denied it. She went through my phone records and saw I'd been calling her often. I told her I had developed a connection with her and was confiding in her, but that's it. That wasn't true. She demanded I stop. I told her I would. I did for a couple weeks, but started again. She found cat hair on my clothes one night. I denied it was due to being at a coworker's house. She found intimate stains on my pants one night. I said it was from snooking it. I mentally abused her by gaslighting her. She knew she was right, but wanted to believe me so bad, and I took advantage of that. In September of 2023, I still maintained that I wasn't dating, but that I wanted to. I encouraged her to go on dating sites and start dating, that I would watch our toddler for her so she could date others and have the romantic connection and simple human connection she craved. Unfortunately, this caused so many triggers for her that she began drinking again. It got bad, fast. I found her at home unconscious drunk during the day with our toddler running around. I told her I would have to take him away if she didn't get help. She swore that she would, but things just got worse. She started going on 2 to 4 day benders, showing up high on something, not looking, talking, or acting like herself. I was so hurt and so angry. I started sleeping at my coworker's house a few nights a week and set up cameras at home to make sure our toddler was safe while I wasn't there. She asked me for help, and I gave her a therapist's name and offered to pay for everything. I was also giving her $2,000 to $3,000 per month of spending money, while carrying all expenses except groceries. I offered to get maids to take care of cleaning and reduce the load. We reached a point where she said she needed to be out of the house and away from my clothes, my smell, my presence, so she could heal. I told her I needed the freedom to drug or alcohol test her at any time to make sure our toddler was safe. This became an emergency court action, and she eventually agreed. I helped her get a new townhouse, gave her the car, but she drove drunk and crashed it twice. My insurance covered the repairs both times, totaling $17,000. It became very scary. Her grandma died, who was one of the last people who she felt connected to. I could see a dark change in her, and she began wearing her grandma's hats and bracelets. Her other grandma died not long after, and she got even worse. I reached out to my wife's brother to express my concern, and to my surprise, he was not angry with me. He was just as scared as me, and we met to talk about our fear that she was dying. Selfishly, my thoughts were that I could never escape being the rescuer to my wife's emergencies. There was always an emergency. If I wasn't having an affair and simply ended our marriage, it would have still been a 10 out of 10 betrayal, and she still would have viewed me the same way. I think. Who knows if I'm right. I held fast and didn't end my affair to reconcile or just be a support for her. I maintained that she needed to go to AA, go to therapy, and stop going on 2 to 4 day benders, forcing me to be off work and confusing/scaring our toddler. I decided to move out in March of 2024. My wife got her own place in April of 2024. I couldn't financially manage paying my wife $2,000 per month net to help her survive while also paying for my own household and expenses. I cut my work hours from 50 hours per week to 20 so I could watch our toddler. This allowed my wife to work. My coworker and I were becoming more serious, and I opened up to my wife about the fact that I was dating her, but lied about the timeline. I said I started dating her in October. She was devastated and confirmed that I had been lying the whole time. She said she was not comfortable with my coworker being around our child until we had been dating for a year. My coworker said she needs me to be completely honest with my wife. No more lies, no more half-truths. So I was. I told my wife I'd been dating my coworker since May 2023. She was devastated all over again. She went through all the events I gaslit her about, all the lies, all the times it seemed like we were connecting, and told me that this was going to kill her. The lack of honesty and betrayal. I was her person, her husband. The one person who didn't leave her no matter how she treated me or what she did. And that in 2022, she finally started feeling safe with me. We were talking about having a second child, but at the end of 2022, I blacked out because I didn't want to have another child before the drinking issue was treated. She told me she wants me to be totally honest with my coworker. And if I was, and my coworker didn't leave me, she would meet my coworker and consent to our child being around during the days I had our toddler at house. I told my coworker 70% of the truth, but didn't tell her that I cheated on her with my wife 3 times over the course of the year. Now, obviously, my coworker felt hurt, betrayed, angry, sad, and demanded that I don't continue conversations with my wife. I don't go to her house. I don't play the role of her support figure. I should have said, too bad. I know it's unfair. But this is my child's mother who is in a crisis, and my primary job right now is to come clean about everything and try to help my wife get sober and healthy. I didn't, though. I tried my best to toe the line. I wanted to keep my new relationship and work my way up to being honest. I was in therapy. I FaceTime my wife daily, either to do bedtime stories with her toddler when he was at her place or vice versa. I took her food to show affection through her grieving process. with her grandmother's deaths and our divorce. In mid-May of this year, I realized I couldn't do this. I'd rather be with my wife, drinking or not, and do my best to help her. Seeing her in this much pain and knowing how much I contributed and how awful it was, I knew I had to stop what I was doing. I called my mom. She lives far away, in case anyone's wondering why she was not a family support for our child, to tell her the truth about everything. My mom was very disappointed in me, but supported me in returning to my wife. I decided to sleep on it. If I still felt so strongly and so certainly the next day, I would tell my coworker that I am not sorry, but I must prioritize family. In the morning, I got a call that she had died by S-word the night before. She left a note saying that she could not handle the PTSD and nightmares from me gaslighting her. She was clear in the note that this was my fault, that I betrayed and abandoned her and left her alone during the worst time of her life. She was clear, explicitly, that I killed her. The coroners and detectives warned me not to read the notes, but I had to know. I came clean to my coworker about everything, including my intent to leave. Now I have lost my wife, the mother of my child, my person. I see clearly now how, despite her flaws and faults, and although her drinking was not my fault, the stress I caused her that often triggered her drinking was my fault. I see how much more I could have done. I see how horribly abusive I was. My wife was too, but not in the recent past. I see how distorted I was. I wake up in the night often. I cry constantly. I have breakdowns multiple times per day. I shake. I feel sick. I might as well have killed my wife myself. My child is going to grow up with no family except for me. When they are 18 and ask me the truth about their mom, I will tell them, and they will hate me. I don't need any of you to tell me how awful I am. I already know. I want to die. If it wasn't for my toddler, I would commit S-word. I now struggle day to day trying to stay alive to look after my child. I hate myself. I hate what I have done. I hate that I will never have a chance to explain to her. I hate that I slept on it. I was less than 12 hours away from making my decision while she was still alive, and I'm certain it would have prevented her death. Why? I hate that I prioritized the person I knew and dated for a year over the person I was with for 15 years, married, and had a child with. Yeah, she abused me. Who fucking cares? She would have always been there. If I put in more effort, she would have been okay. All she needed was some support. She was alone in the world except for me, and I checked out on her. Yeah, she refused so many chances to heal or address her issues before, but who the fuck cares? Why be spiteful or say should have changed when you had the chance? All that matters is that she was ready. That it wasn't on my timeline, didn't warrant my spiteful withdrawal. I ruined my life. I killed my wife. I lost my girlfriend. I destroyed my family. I destroyed my wife's family. I devastated my mom, who lost a daughter and now has a shell of a son. I upped my life insurance to $3 million. I hope I die. My child will be set for life and will not have to deal with having a monster for a father. So many people tried to warn me. My coworker asked me many times if I was certain I was done with my wife. She said if I wanted to try again with her, I could, and she would wait for me. My best friend warned me. My wife begged me to give her one more chance. I am so sorry for what I have done. I don't deserve to live. And yeah, let's just sit with that for a second, because that's a lot to process. A ton of emotion in the OP's writing. This is just one of the most intense and emotional confessions or threads I've ever read before. The OP doesn't seem to be doing okay. I mean, Most of the time, these confessions end on a good note, but this one just kept going down and down and down, and he doesn't seem to be doing well. But let's get into some of the comments, because the OP does lay out some more issues or address some issues in the comments. So let's get into that. The OP says, I'm in therapy in a bereavement group. I needed to dump all my thoughts somewhere, and I don't want to put this on a friend. I've had some nice comments of support. I hope someone somewhere who might be in a similar situation will read my story, and maybe it'll help them pause and consider what could happen. I never thought S-word would be the outcome here. I thought I had time to try a relationship with someone stable for a while. Worst case scenario in my mind was I regretted it and asked my wife to take me back. It can happen to anyone. It's definitely not the norm, but most people who are cheated on don't die from S-word, but it can happen. And that's the reason that he outlined it here well. And the reason why I make a lot of these confession videos, because these people, or these people that make these posts, can really provide support for everyone watching now. If you're in a similar situation, you're not alone. And you can just learn some lessons from people who have already been through something, and you can just realize that you're not alone. And, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can figure out your own experience or your situation. Some other commenter says, this is one of the most haunting things I have ever read. I will never forget you. This will live with me forever now. I'll keep you and your child in my thoughts. Always. And then the OP responds saying, I also feel haunted by this, by every misstep, every choice. It is a nightmare, and I can't believe I've made such bad decisions that this is now my life. No do-overs. This is it. Every day, forever. Thank you for your thoughts. Another commenter says, my heart breaks for you, man. The only thing that's going to help you is therapy and time. You're doing the right thing by being accountable, attending support groups and individual therapy sessions, but this is a long, long road. Eventually, you'll come to understand that you're not a monster. You're just a guy that made a series of very bad decisions that, had you known the ramifications of beforehand, wouldn't have made. There was no way for you to know how your wife was going to react when you were honest with her. Stick in there. It gets better. Put in the work and be a better person for your kid. And the OP responds to this saying, thank you for this. It's interesting that when I read what you're saying, I can believe that it's true, but I don't feel it. Right now, I think any attempt I make to lighten the path feels like letting myself off the hook. My wife is dead, and it feels wrong to do anything except suffer horribly. I hope in time I experience healing and can remember all the positives about her and how much joy she brought to our family and those around her. You are right that I am a human being who made bad choices. I think that undersells the significance and impact of my behavior and how short-sighted it was, but at the end of the day, I was hurting and not thinking clearly at all. My child is my priority now. These cycles can't be allowed to repeat. 2 generations now have died prematurely to ODing or S-word. My measure of success in my toddler growing up happy, healthy, safe, and loved. And I mean, that's great. The OP is taking accountability and realizing that the best steps forward is to take care of his child and to make sure this doesn't happen again and the cycle doesn't repeat. So that's a great, happy ending. And then the OP does answer a lot of general questions, which we can get into briefly. He makes an edit saying, wow, I am overwhelmed by the comments here, and so I will write a general response to everyone. For those who wrote with support, thank you so much. The comments of support from strangers are oddly comforting. I am doing my best to heal. Though at this point, it does feel like recovery from this is not possible. I'm trying to take the perspective that this is the emotional version of a catastrophic physical injury, where the best outcome possible is recovering some ability and making peace with the ability that has been lost. For those who can relate, I'm sorry. If you can relate to my story, you have likely gone through a lot of pain and a lot of experience with severe mental health issues or addictions. I hope you find healing in your life. For those who wrote that this is fake, I think it would be good to reflect on why you think it's important to post comments like this. What is gained? The best case scenario is you are correct and someone is hurting so much in their personal life that they make up fake stories to get some type of connection. Someone without comfort in their life is a human being in need of help. Why would you want to prioritize catching them rather than giving them support? I checked a couple of profiles of people who wrote these negative comments about fake posts, and generally, the comment histories are intense, angry, and negative. If this is you, I hope you find whatever is missing from your life that is hurting you so much. For those who wrote hateful messages about my wife, I think only someone who has been hurt by others who have addictions can lack empathy and feel so justified in condemning another human being. I hope you're able to heal from your anger and find peace in your life. Addiction is horrible, but it is only a symptom of the pain that person has been through. Some people have enough support to heal and overcome this, but not everyone does. It is helpful, I think, to not judge people who are struggling in this way. For those who have messaged me wishing death upon me, I think only someone who has been hurt by another person in their life who has done something like I have done could be so angry that they would wish death upon me. I am sorry you have experienced so much pain in your life, and I hope you find healing. For those who ask kindly for clarification about certain points that seem unusual, my mom lives very far away, so it was untrue to say that all my family has passed away. For someone like me who grew up with grandparents, aunts and uncles, mom and dad, it feels like I've lost everyone. I understand if some of you believe you've caught some major mistake, and this proves conclusively this is a fake story, and you are entitled to that belief. It does not justify you sending messages of hate. Regarding the term coworker versus employee, I've never viewed those who work for me as less than. I go out of my way to not call myself boss or them employees or subordinates, totally outside the point of my post. I also go out of my way to avoid creating a dynamic of work where I am clearly superior to anyone else. Like the above, if you believe this is proof that my story is fake, that's okay. But again, please don't act hatefully. You can just move on from the post. And that is the last we've heard of the OP from this post and about this post. So I really do hope this OP and the OP is doing better now. And I really liked how he answered the questions at the end, because sometimes I read the comments on this video or the videos that I make and people are like, oh, that's a fake confession. And he outlined it well there. It's like, why would someone fake a confession for just some like internet pity points? I don't know. Sure, it's possible, but at the same time, why would someone spend so much time fabricating a fake story to gain pity points? I don't know. Sure, he said, believe it if you want, but I'm really glad that he answered all those questions at the end, because I'm sure a lot of you were thinking that or thinking of some of those questions. So I'm glad he provided those answers, but I really do hope the OP is doing better now. And if anyone watching is going through something similar, hopefully this added some, comfort to you to realize that you're not alone and that you can get through it. And I hope the OP is just doing better now and he can just, continue on getting better and better each day, raising his child the best he can, and just improving his life from this horrible catastrophe that I hope he can move on from and learn something from. And rest in peace to OP's wife and, everyone involved. But very, very terrifying and sad and depressing story. I just hope everyone is well now. On to the next one. I slowly became an alcoholic and it ruined my life. Male, 25. Moved to California about a month before the pandemic. Came to start a small production company in the Bay Area with my longtime best friend. I met an older woman about a week before the pandemic that turned into an intense romance, and we fled the Bay Area for the SoCal desert around the second week of March. I was immediately intoxicated by the landscape and felt an incredible draw to the environment and its earthly beauty. The magenta-kissed mountains at dawn, the soft afternoon breeze, the psychedelic sunsets. What started as a 2-week stint, she returned to her parents' home to quarantine, we still remained together, turned into 9 months plus of staying there. I've always enjoyed isolation. and felt it was a positive, detoxifying place for me to be after living in New York for almost 7 years. It started slow, with just a few sips of something to take the edge off and relax while watching the sunset. As the nights followed, what started as a few sips turned into glass upon glass upon glass. Frequently, if not every night, for nearly 4 months straight, finishing a half a handle. I would religiously, each night, light candles and listen to music, and it just all felt so calm. It seemed in some way to amplify the beauty of the desert environment. It helped me feel something, I guess, I hadn't felt before. Free. Although I was strictly drinking mezcal, which never left me with a single hangover, I did not realize the effects of such heavy drinking on my day-to-day cognitive function. The euphoria I would experience each night, at times almost psychedelic in nature, flowed into my everyday, and the feeling of confidence, invincibility, and what I can only describe as true happiness only grew deeper. I was running half marathons, taking some of the strongest photographs of my career, and making a ton of new friends. However, these feelings were also leading me to make extremely rash and erratic decisions, from making extremely speculative investments at huge losses, cheating on my girlfriend with multiple women, and carelessly making mistakes at my job, and withdrawing all of my life savings to purchase a piece of land in the desert. The effects of the liquor only compounded and compounded, with each decision and action being more careless and thoughtless than the last. And by the end of the summer, I'd been fired from my job, had nearly thrown away my career, was in nearly $100,000 worth of debt, and was on the brink of losing my girlfriend. Now in 2021, I've been sober for nearly 32 days, but am still just clawing back at the effects of my alcoholism from last year. I don't know what it was that drove me to drink in such excess, spend in such excess, act without any regard for the true consequences of my actions for myself and those around me. How I allowed my life to completely spiral out of control. Perhaps it was what I felt the alcohol alleviated from my lifelong battle with depression and anxiety. During those summer months, I can't remember feeling sad or anxious or lonely a single time. I can't lie. I wish, more than anything, in the world to feel like that again. I've been battling S-word thoughts more recently and weirdly fantasizing about living out the last few months of my life like that again, just to feel like that one more time. But I know I can't, because it will destroy whatever it is I have left. I am a drug addict. This is my story. For 9 years now, I've been addicted to Breaking Bad substance. I'm sorry I have to censor it, but I'm sure a lot of you have watched Breaking Bad, and it's the crystal. So yeah, it's ruined my life. During that time, I've lost my wife, my kids, my house, my job, my car, and my self-respect, and most of my teeth. I started doing crystal, and I kept it from my wife for a long time, but eventually she figured it out. She told me I had to stop immediately, or she and the kids were leaving. I agreed and promised to stop, then got high the same night. She eventually figured it out again and gave me the same ultimatum, but added that I needed to join a 12-step program. I did, and I stayed clean for a long time, but then I had a shitty day and went right back to it. She found out, and she and the kids left that night. She told me that we were done. She made it clear to me that it was them or the crystal, and I picked crystal. After they left and my wife sent me the divorce papers, I started to spiral. I started doing more, and eventually it affected my work. I fucked something up because I was strung out from the night before. It was an accident with heavy machinery. Thankfully, no one was injured, but it was company policy to drug test me, and I did not pass it, so they fired me. I got even more into crystal and would do it for days with friends at the apartment I was living in. Eventually, I needed more drugs but had no more money, so I started doing petty crimes for drug money. Then the unthinkable happened. My ex-wife was in a terrible accident and passed away. My children had already lost their father, and now they lost their only parent who was taking care of them. I was high as shit when I heard the news. I had a breakdown and I checked myself in a rehab and joined the program again. I had to be there for my children. They were living with her parents as they were the closest family. I got my act together and saw them for the first time in over 4 years. I was afraid I might never be able to get them to forgive me, but the first thing they did was hug me and cry because I looked so much better than the last time they saw me. I started working multiple jobs to save more money, but I would come by and see them every couple weeks. I worked 60+ hour weeks for 4 years, saving every penny I could, and when my son graduated last year, I told him about the money I saved for his and his sister's education. He was speechless. It was not a small amount I saved for both of them, but I lived in a shitty studio in a bad part of town. Had 2 decent paying jobs, and I didn't have things like cable, internet. I'm using my neighbor's Wi-Fi for my phone, or bought anything that wasn't essential. Between the money I saved, his parents saved, and his scholarship, my son went to one of the better law schools in the country. He was reluctant to take that much money from me, and he is still angry with me for everything I have done. And rightfully so, but I'm glad I convinced him to take it. I told him that I didn't get the money because I wanted him to forgive me. I did it because he deserved better than what he got from me, and so does his sister. I'm so proud of him. He's going to be an incredibly successful someday. He's going to be a better man than I am in every imaginable way, despite the ways I failed him for so much of his life. I'm still on track with my daughter's money, and she's graduating next year. I did have to quit the second job early this year because, honestly, both jobs are very physically demanding, and I honestly just can't do these kind of long hours anymore. My doctor tells me I will probably need knee surgery in the near future because of the damage done to my knees, but honestly, I don't care if I ever walk again after next year, as long as I get my daughter her money to further her education in whatever way she sees fit. If I can do that for my children, it won't make up for anything, but it'll ensure that they will be well off. She wants to be a doctor. I just hope she can swing med school with the money I'm getting her. It'll all be worth it to see my children succeed. I'm doing better now. I'll be getting my 5-year chip in a few months. I will never use again or let my children down. I'm planning on getting a second job again in a few months after some more time of working only 50-ish hours a week just to get more money. I know my body will hate me for this, and I will have at best maybe a few years before things get worse for me physically, but it's okay. I will be fine knowing that I made sure my children will be successful and better than me. It's going to be worth it. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Wow, what a life, man. Congrats on the sobriety and overcoming it before it took you." Someone else says, "Thank you for sharing, bro. It's okay to fall down, but you must get up. You had your share of downfalls, but you also got the strength and rose to the occasion. I wish you nothing but success in your life and hope you find what it is you're looking for. Cheers." And since then, the OP's account has been banned, so I don't know how he's been doing. This was posted 4 years ago, so hopefully the OP is doing well now. Hopefully his kids are in college. Hopefully they've graduated from college and are doing well now. But wow, what a story of, getting down, but eventually getting back up. Seems to have ended on a good note, which is always great. I broke somebody's spinal cord and now he is paralyzed for life. When I was 12, there was this boy in my classroom who loved gymnastics I used to pick on sometimes. Me and my friends called him Girly or F-slur and stuff. One day in gym class, he was doing some kind of gymnastic twirl. I do not know what this is called in English, but is like a complicated gymnastic pose. I don't know. When I decided to push his back with my foot in order to make him fall, he fell down to the ground heavily and broke his spinal cord, which most likely will have him paralyzed for his entire life. I was not sentenced in any way due to that. It was considered an accident, and because of my young age, law might be different in my country than in the US. I just got changed to another school. I've tried to reach him and his family several times, but they do not want anything to do with me, of course. He was a boy with dreams and talent in gymnastics, and I have forever ruined his life. I have been depressed ever since. I wish I could swap places with him because he does not deserve that. Almost 3 years have passed and it feels like a never-ending nightmare. Somebody will not be able to live his life properly because I am a jerk. No one wants to be near me since then. I look forward to starting an anti-bullying campaign in the future, but nothing will ever be enough because the boy will always be in a wheelchair, no matter how much I try to redeem myself. I watched a man commit S-word. And that's not the exact title, but I have to censor for YouTube's sake. But anyways, let's get into it. I watched a man commit S-word in person right in front of me. A little backstory. I am a firearms instructor / range safety officer at a shooting range. Before any first-time guest, regardless of their shooting experience, come to the range, and before they are allowed to rent a firearm or use their own on our range, they must register and create accounts on our iPads near the front entrance, and they must watch a safety video explaining not only the rules of our range, but general universal firearm safety rules, and every guest who is not a law enforcement officer or holder of a firearms license must come with a buddy and a valid form of identification, driver's license or US ID or a passport for non-Americans. Nobody shoots alone unless the mentioned criteria is met. And before we get into the rules, I just want to emphasize how important this is, whether or not you support guns or you don't support guns or whatever, or have shot a gun or haven't shot a gun or never want to, or you do want to. I think it's very important, and these are rules everybody should know, especially if you're in the US where guns are a lot more common, I guess. But yeah, the OP then lists 7 rules that are very important, and I myself just agree with everything said, and it's very important for everybody to know this. So number 1, always keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction. Number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. 3, always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. 4, know your target and what is beyond / behind it. 5, know how to operate your firearm safely. Number 6, always wear eye and ear protection. Number 7, never use drugs or alcohol before or while using a firearm. Okay, so now we got that out of the way, let me explain how our range handles safety. It is always our number 1 priority. It does not matter how long you've been shooting. From a novice to a master, you, if any RSO reasonably believes you are being unsafe with your firearm, rented or owned, you will be ejected from the range, banned, and have no refund. Furthermore, prior to first-time guests entering the range, they must go through a hands-on training class on how to use firearms safely, as a fail-safe for anyone zoning out during the video. During this time, we are not only demonstrating properly and safely using firearms, but we also watching mannerisms, behaviors, and looking for red flags. Unfortunately, this person was not demonstrating any red flag behavior, so we had no idea this person had the intention of using our gun to do something horrifying. He was laughing and smiling and holding conversations with us and the rest of the staff. At around 4 p.m. on a Friday in early September, 2 men came in to rent a pistol. After they went through our first-time guest registration process, they went into the range to shoot, being supervised by myself and my coworker. There were 2 other guests shooting as well, one who I know and talk to regularly, and another who is a member of our range, but I am not familiar with. After the 2 men shot upwards of 70 to 80 rounds, the man goes up, takes a few shots at his target, takes his ear protection off, and turns the gun to commit S-word. And before I lifted my hands and yelled for him to stop, he fired a single shot. And then the description gets graphic, so I won't read everything because it's just very graphic, but he commits S-word right there. He was dead before he hit the floor, and before either of us RSOs can react, his body is now on the ground with blood pooling as we guide the other shooters out of the range. We have quick alarm buttons on our walls in every range and at the counters outside to call for either medical or police. I lift the glass on medical and hit the button. My coworker's radio In that, we have a S word and to have the guy at the counter call 911. We both stood over the guy's body, not knowing what else we could do or what we should have done to prevent this from happening and saving his life. What haunts me to this day is the fact that there were no indications of this man having the idea of doing something like that. Hug your loved ones, say you love them, call your family, call your friends, check in on them. You never know what someone is feeling or thinking, and I learned that lesson the hard way. P.S. I'm fine. It was intense, but I proceeded it without lasting impact. I stayed grounded. I understood the gravity of the situation, but it didn't resonate with me on a personal level. I almost killed my stepmom. This is pretty hard for me to post. I've never talked to anyone about this. Even my wife doesn't know the full extent of it, but here we go. In 2000, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was a 2-pack-a-day smoker for about 25 years. She fought hard and was able to extend the short life expectancy the doctors gave her. I'm not sure how long they gave her. I was 10. They spared me the details. Anyways, she survived for over a year and ended up passing away in February of 2001. I remember as if it was yesterday. Her best friend came over the very next day as we were in mourning to pay respects and say goodbyes to her friend, which is normal and fine. The thing I felt weird about was that same night, the day after my mother's passing, she spent the night with me and my dad. She slept on the couch. At the time, I didn't think too much of it. Had other things on my mind, obviously. Plus, we had numerous family and friends coming by and sleeping over before her passing as well, so I grew semi-used to it. Time goes on, and it seems every other night she's sleeping over. Within the first months of my mother's death, she's finally sleeping in my dad's room with him. During this time, she was respectful and nice. She brought her 2 youngest kids a lot as well, which was nice at the time. Fast forward 3 months. We ended up moving and she and her 2 kids end up coming with us. By this time, they are already talking about marriage, which I strongly protested, along with every single family member of mine as well. They decided to ignore me and everyone else and get married. The same year my mother passed away. At first, things were the same as they were, but as time went on, she began to show favoritism to her own kids, which I guess is understandable, but to the extent that it grew was kind of disturbing. She'd let her kids get away with murder. They would taunt me, make fun of my dead mom, threw ashtrays at me yelling, "Your mom wants a hug." She was cremated, so pretty much anything with ash was fair game to use to fuck with me. A year goes by in the new house, and me being a skater kid, I frequented the skate park a lot. On my way back home one day, I ate shit. Bad. Hit a crack in the road on a very steep and large hill. I was probably going in excess of 20 miles an hour. The board stopped, my body flew, then rolled a few more feet. I was barely able to move but managed to hobble back, cradling my arm like a baby and screaming at the top of my lungs the entire way home. As I'm walking up, she intercepts me in the garage and accuses me of overreacting and tells me the quote of, "Stop being a little pussy." I knew there was something wrong with my arm, considering I was physically unable to move it at all. But she wouldn't listen to me, and my dad wasn't home from work yet either. For hours, I waited for him to show up, and when he does, it turned out my SM had already talked to him, so he wouldn't listen either. And I think SM is stepmom. The next day was a school day. I remember this because I was awoken by my stepmom, little cretin of a son, throwing my full backpack onto my chest to wake me up. I woke up screaming. Stepmom comes running into the room and promptly tells me to shut the fuck up, you're not hurt. Stop faking because you're going to school. Well, I couldn't stop. I was in agony. I was still holding my arm like a baby, so she punched my bicep, in the fashion friends would I guess you could call, and said, "I'm taking your dumb ass to the hospital just to make sure you feel stupid when they tell you nothing is wrong." Well, upon seeing the doctor, he almost immediately says, "Yup, your shoulder is broken. I can tell by the way your arm instinctively supporting your arm." SM was silent. Doctor set up x-rays, Turns out my collarbone was completely shattered. Proved her wrong, but it only fueled her rage more, it seemed. She became spiteful, took away all my skateboards, bikes, anything that I could ride. My arm was in a sling anyway, so it wasn't like I could use them anyways. But she had no intent on giving them back to me. In fact, she gave them to her own son. Even my own dad said it was for the best because I've shown to be irresponsible with them and can't use them correctly. Only thing I was able to do was play video games. Barely. Considering my arm was completely bundled up. Another few months go by and my arm is healing up good. And we all go on an easy hike in the desert. We find and pick up some wild cactus apples. Excited and eager, I start eating one with the help of my dad. Turns out there were little mites in the fruit, and I contracted scabies. Half of my face swells up in the most morbid of ways. I couldn't talk right, couldn't open one of my eyes. I was fucked up. My older sister, that I just realized I haven't mentioned at all yet in this post, came to visit me with my 2 nephews. Drove 3 hours just to hang out with me and see how I'm doing. As soon as she sees my gruesome, swollen face, she screams in terror, grabs her kids, and leaves. Needless to say, it made me feel like more shit, but I understand. She calls my dad, urging him to take me to the hospital, but stepmom refuses again, saying it's not that bad and that all I need is a nice, warm washcloth. Well, 2 weeks go by, swelling is reduced, but not completely gone. Sister threatens to call the cops if they don't do something. So stepmom again tries, saying she's gonna feel dumb when it turns out to be nothing. Well, this time doctors say at this point they can't tell what it is. Scabies was the most likely considering the symptoms, I'm told. That I should have been there 2 weeks prior when I couldn't open my eye. Stepmom takes this as a win. More time goes by, more shit happens with stepmom. CPS is called and I'm interviewed. Nothing happens with that. Holidays were ruined by her kids, yet I was to blame. I ended up basically being the Cinderella of my house at this point. My bed was even moved into the laundry room. 1 year, the pipe burst and my room flooded up to 8 inches. Nothing was done about that. Eventually, when I was about 14 years old, I worked up the courage to tell my dad what I thought about her and how she treats me. Well, I guess by this time he was so tainted by her that he began talking like her. He said, "Get over it. She's not mean. You're just trying to antagonize for the sake of drama." I told him if that's how he feels, then I'm moving out to live with my sister. My sister agrees and I move out. Life was good for a bit, till I started missing my dad. I felt like I failed him, so after 2 years living with my sister, I decided to move back in with my dad. Almost on arrival, my stepmom starts her shit all over again. Comments like, "Great, more unneeded doctor visits," or "No skateboarding, don't want your sister calling the CPS again." It was actually my aunt that called, I found out years later. On the day before my 17th birthday, I will never forget the words that came out of her mouth. I was getting breakfast and made a comment on how the house was starting to reek with a cigarette smoke smell. I'll admit at this point I was a bit snarky, but I said it to myself. Stepmom wasn't in the room, but she heard me all right. She storms in and tells me, "If you don't like it, then go back to your sister's house. Or did she kick your whiny ass out and that's why you're back?" I snapped and told her to fuck off and to commit S-word. She walked up to me and looked down at me. She's a good foot taller than I am. I'm pretty damn short. And says, "You do it. I fucking dare you." I stare at her in disbelief and she just starts laughing. "Fucking pussy, you're weak. Just like your mom." At this point, I have a death grip on my fork with every intention of sticking it in her throat, but I don't. I keep quiet and continue eating my breakfast. That was the first of many comments about my mom. Seems she took a page from her own kids that used to say the very similar insults. Only thing is, she was supposedly my mom's best friend. I call her out on this and she tells me to fuck off and die. Because of the years of mental abuse, I become depressed. S-word was on my mind a lot, and she knew it. She egged me on, telling me to say hi to my mom in hell when I get there. She would get drunk and say the most horrible things like, "I hope Satan makes your mom put cigarette butts out on your face for eternity." After a while of this, I made a I can't say this word on YouTube, but he made a rope to commit S-word with, measured the rope, and tied it to a wooden beam on my ceiling. One night, I tried to commit S-word. The wooden beam above me broke, and obviously I survived. I took this as a sign that maybe I'm not the one that needs to die. Eventually, I end up finding my dad's gun after a few days of snooping in his room when no one was home. I hid it in my room and kept telling myself on repeat, next time she's blind drunk. Well, a friend came over one night and we began talking a bit. I told him I was fed up and that I had a plan. I didn't go into details, but he's a smart person. He was able to figure out what I was planning pretty easily. He began crying to me. He pled for me not to go through with anything and to move back into my sister's house. This went on for quite a bit, but eventually he talked me out of it. I showed him the gun and he snatched it so fast and took off out of my house and down the road to the lake. He tossed that motherfucker as hard as he could into the water. Somehow seeing that made me feel better. Anyways, I realize this is pretty anticlimactic, but after that, I just ended up moving back in with my sister. No one in the family has any contact with my dad or his wife anymore, and at this point, I think that's his choice. It's been over 10 years since then. I've moved across the country to numerous different states. I've made a career and name for myself. I got married to my dream girl, and we have the best little girl together. Things could not be better. Last I heard, stepmom's two youngest are in rehab centers, and stepmom had a massive heart attack that almost killed her. Surprised me that she even has a heart. Karma, I'm guessing. Anyways, that's my life. Laid it all out in its poorly written glory. I'm sure some people won't buy this, but I honestly didn't put this here for anyone else other than myself, so it's no skin off my back. Take what you want from this whole thing as you will. I'm just glad to get this off my chest one way or another, and grateful that I had an amazing friend that was able to help me out of my darkest places. And you know, at the end, he really outlined two very important things. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Your life can always get better. I mean, it looked very bleak for him at one point, trying to commit S-word himself and then trying to murder his stepmom. I mean, two horrible things that presented opportunities to him, but he got through it. He got through the bleak time. He got through the bad time. And if you're going through anything even similar or not even similar, but even no matter how bad it is, how depressed you are, how bad or horrible of a situation you are in, you can get out and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And also, the second thing that he outlined was talking to somebody. He talked to his friend, and his friend saved his life because he would have been in prison for the rest of his life. And so, you know, that's two very important things that I just want to outline. Talk to somebody. If you're going through something, please talk to somebody. I've said it in multiple videos beforehand. If you have nobody to talk to, reach out at the email. My email in the description of this video or in my about section. But yeah, you should never resort to any of these extremes. And there is always another option. So if you're in a situation like this, just keep going. It will get better. And talk to somebody, because that can definitely, you know, make your situation a lot better and alleviate a lot of the stress on your shoulders. I've been diagnosed with a terminal disease. I haven't and don't want to tell my friends and family. Sup fam, longtime lurker. Don't know why I'm posting this. Maybe it's the alcohol. Maybe it's that I'm tired. You know, really tired. So here's my story. Some months back, I was hospitalized with pneumonia, and I spent a week in the ICU. My bloody lung had collapsed. Long story short, I'm in my 30s. Always been pretty fit. One of those annoying assholes that loves to get drunk and run marathons the next morning. But landed myself in the hospital, and after extensive tests, the docs found I had scar tissue on my lungs. My family and friends came to see me, but at the time, nothing really serious was discovered, you know, besides a deflated lung and pneumonia. I hate when people worry, so I tend to downplay anything serious. Now fast forward a few months. After lots of scans and tests, I've got pulmonary fibrosis. Basically, my lungs ain't so bueno. It's still in the early stages, so I don't have to be on oxygen yet. But this is it for me, kiddos. Never thought I'd go out because of my lungs. Always figured it'd be a heart attack or getting stabbed by a tweaker in an alley. What's funny is I'm not really mad about it. People talk about fighting disease. I've been in plenty of scraps. I've taken life. I've seen life taken. This isn't like that. Not at all. When it's your time, it just is. I feel like a fraud, a liar. I know people around me can tell things aren't okay, but I don't want to talk about it, you know? I've seen too many people die too slowly. What happens to people around them is agony. I've always been the strong one, but right now, I feel pathetically weak. I hate being dishonest. Everyone around me has so much shit going on, they don't need to deal with this too. So I'm telling you, my digital compatriots that gaze into this digital ether, I'm a coward, but that's okay. 10 years ago today, I almost executed a plan to murder my brother. I always considered myself the fuck up of the family, and this victim mentality really didn't do me any favors. My brother and I had kind of a rough start of it. Both parents underemployed, father alcoholic, mother depressed, and sort of checked out of reality. We were latchkey kids, basically raising ourselves. I kind of decided life was over before it began, but my brother was, like, I don't know if he was oblivious to the whole situation or if it fortified him, but he was just driven from day one. He was the younger brother, which made it even worse for me. While I was failing classes and getting teased and disappointing everyone, he was crushing it at everything he even gave a try. Phenomenal athlete, math whiz, everyone liked him, and somehow he actually managed to be a good person on top of all that. At the time, I thought everything came incredibly easy to him, so I didn't acknowledge any of the backbreaking hard work he had to put in to be that kind of guy. The resentment built up for the years, and eventually I became pretty alienated from my family. That's when I got into the party lifestyle, and from there gambling. It started as the group I'd fallen in with, always hitting casinos for cheap drinks and fast girls, but quickly became an obsession for me. They liked the games, I loved it, to the point that I lost the friends and just hung out at the casino all the time. Meanwhile, my brother was building this tremendous small business and making out really well for himself. Eventually, I hit bottom, or what I thought was bottom, after losing every last cent of borrowed money and having to leave town. I went to my brother, in earnest at the time, and begged him to just give me one more chance. He was so incredible. He got me into a program and helped me get clean. He got me a job at his business. He even let me live with him despite the fact that his fiancée definitely hated my guts. But he didn't know about my gambling. I never told him. I stayed on the straight and narrow for a while, but after about a year, I just convinced myself that he wasn't doing any of these things, the job, the rehab, the room, out of kindness, but out of condescension. I grew to despise him and my whole life around him, even though it was exponentially happier and healthier than anything previous in my adult life, though I was too blind to see it. I felt beholden to him and figured that's what he wanted. At no time did it occur to me he wanted me to get on my own 2 feet and just be his brother. I figured if I was too cynical to do the same for him, why would he do it for me? I couldn't cope with the shame and remorse and anger oscillating inside. One moment I'd feel crippling rage. The next I'd be overwhelmed with guilt for being so ungrateful. Then I'd be angry at him for making me guilty. The thrill of hitting a big win was my only release. It made me feel successful and worthwhile and independent and gave me the sense of hope that nothing else at that point could. A lump sum of cash seemed like the answer to most of my problems, with the answer to the rest being a bigger lump sum. But it wasn't even really about the money so much at that point. I already had the best job I'd ever had before. It was the beautiful women, the free stuff, You just feel like a movie star when you're on a run in a halfway decent casino. And you would only have to do the bare minimum to make me feel special in the moment because I felt so low in the rest of my life. After about a year and a half, I thought my brother might be getting suspicious because I was making good money at my job, but never seemed to buy anything fancy or make a move towards my own place. My presence was definitely causing strain on his marriage, and he was probably anxious to kick me out without forcing me back to my old lifestyle. So one day I told him I'd gotten an apartment and I took off. I was actually homeless. Some nights the casino would give me a room, but by that point I rarely had enough money to attract attention. I started borrowing from shadier and shadier people. My friends had learned their lesson about lending me anything of value, and most weren't even talking to me anymore. Or I cut contact with them in a rage when they refused to lend me money. In my eyes, at the time, they had so much, and there was no reason they couldn't kick me a few bucks. They were just greedy assholes. Yeah, I was a mess. But I always managed to pay back what I'd borrowed or get away from the lenders before anything too serious happened until I couldn't. An escort I was spending a fair deal of time with back then vouched for me to some friends of hers that I was good for a loan. I took out more than I usually would. I was sick of being homeless and convinced myself if I could just get enough capital to work with, I could get a nice place and sell my paintings for a living and have a nice, comfortable life. I was prepared to do whatever it took to make that night be the last night of living that way. And I kept telling myself next time was going to be it. Things would turn around. I was about to start winning again. It was statistics. I had to win the next one. I took more risks than I usually would and dipped into my emergency fund and put myself in a really bad position. I lost it all. It was more borrowed money than I'd ever lost, and I knew I was fucked. I was given a very clear ultimatum as to when I had to return the money. They knew way too much about me via the escort who recommended me for any hope of skipping out. Plus, unlike the smaller guys I dealt with before, mostly friends of friends, employers, or wannabes, these weren't the type of people to so easily forget a big loan. I spent the first couple of days calling in favors. I didn't really have any favors to call, so that didn't really help me. Only one guy even took my call, and that was just to tell me no, nicely. Then I started thinking I'd end things, but I was just such a narcissistic, bad person back then that within 12 hours of planning how I'd do it, I thought, this is really my brother's fault that I'm in this position. Why should I have to pay for what he did to me? He's been holding me down my whole life. I was so out of my mind back then that I don't know what the thought process leading up to that could have even been. But the only one of our parents we spoke to was dead, so I figured there must be something for me in the will. He didn't have any kids yet. We talked about the end of our life at some point, and he'd strongly hinted he'd leave something for me. Despite his success, he lived pretty frugally, so I couldn't just snatch his car or anything to handle this. I wasn't smart enough and didn't have enough time to embezzle. I figured I could make it seem like a robbery gone bad. I was nowhere near smart enough, even in a lucid state, to pull that off. I don't know what I was thinking. I made a spectacularly half-assed, nonsensical plan and was going to wait outside his house. He, or rather his fiancée, made me give back the key when I moved out, and just go for it. My plan involved me showing up before he got home from work and did not take into account what I'd do if he were to come home early for whatever reason. So as I was approaching the house, he was out back doing some repairs, and he recognized me. I don't know if my height and build are that distinct or he knew my shoes or what, because I was wearing a mask and he immediately came around and say, "Hey, is that you? Come on in here. I was just fixing to go out. Have you eaten yet?" I was still far enough away that I guess he didn't register that I was lurking around in the dark with a mask, but I ripped it off and something just overtook me. I was at the absolute peak of my stress levels and in a delirium. I just broke down. For maybe the first time in my life since he was a baby, I saw my brother in a wholly positive light and as a refuge rather than a threat. And I just collapsed crying. I told him my whole payment situation. He consoled me and took me inside and worked out an agreement in which he paid off the people in question contingent on me entering treatment. He had no idea about my gambling problem before then. From then on, thanks to a lot of therapy and GA, I managed to heal from the whole clusterfuck that was the beginning of my life. My brother knows about everything now, the feelings of resentment, the lies, but not this. I've still never told anyone this. I almost talked about it in my last meeting, but I just can't bring myself to talk about it. I'm far too ashamed. And I'm always worried if I say it, even one place out loud, someone might know my brother and feel compelled to tell him. Even though I would never in my right mind, which I am now, consider doing something like that. My brother would have no reason to believe it. I almost told him on step 5 and again on step 9, but I figured it would fall under the cause injury to category. Basically means that it is something that would be more hurtful to tell him than to let him go on not knowing, because he's already had so much hurt and betrayal in his life. He genuinely trusts me now. He's happier for that, and it took years to get to that point. It might make me feel better to tell him, but it would probably be just one more burden for him to carry. I almost told him today, thinking enough time had passed. It had to be all right, but I thought about it and realized, he stands to gain nothing. It would really be so much more for me than for him. I love him so much, and I'll never forgive myself for spitting in the face of his kindness for so many years. I could never tell him. But at the same time, it definitely creates a wedge between us. I've thought about it more than once. I couldn't ever take the risk. He's the best thing I'll ever have. I've just got to put that all behind me. I think this helped me think through it though. I don't know. Thanks for reading if you did get this far. Oh, and if you need help, do try a meeting. My brother dragging me into one surely saved my life. I'll drop a list of national hotlines in the comments. My rich dad lost it all. So I'm 24 female. I come from a very privileged place, and I can't really talk about that with my friends because I'm not really sure there will be any left after that, so I'm saying that here. My dad made his money because he was in tech when no one was. Like, he started working in the 90s and got involved in the creation of so many major companies, it's actually insane. He made millions from it. And today, he's now about to be homeless. So how did he do such a magic trick, you may ask? Addiction is not your friend. I'm pretty sure my dad has them all. Alcohol, gambling, drugs. When I was little, it was pretty well known that we had money. And I mean, pretty easy to see. I had an amazing apartment with a beautiful view, a castle for the weekend, and various summer houses. We were always traveling to exclusive places. I had my first Chanel bag when I was 9, my first Rolex at 12. But behind the scenes, everything was bad. My mom left my dad when I was 4 because he was beating us when he was drunk. And from that moment on, well, he wasted everything. It started to be well known in his line of work that he wasn't reliable for partying too much, not showing to some important meetings, etc. For that, people got less inclined to work with him, and rightfully so. But even with that, he was settled for life in theory. For some strange reason, he stopped paying his taxes. Like, I don't know, he just didn't feel like it anymore. Well, that's what got him in the end. Also the crazy gambling, but a casino can't cease you, the state can. So little by little, everything got sold, and now they came for where we lived, and we lost that too. In a month, he will be in the streets without a job. I've still got 1 year left of uni that don't really know how I'm going to pay for. A trust fund isn't a thing in my country, and I don't really have anything to my name, but I'm about to be a doctor, so I'm not too worried for me. My dad, on the other end, I don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, it just is hard to comprehend how you can go from having it all to nothing. Piece of advice: don't drink and pay your taxes. And I mean, wow, that's just such a depressing story, and who knows what happened to the OP's father. because I don't know how you can deal with the weight of knowing you had it all and you're homeless now. Like, what do you even do at that point? Truly, like, that is like just rock. I don't know how you even recover from that. So I hope OP's father is doing the best he can. But I mean, this is a great lesson. Once again, I mean, we've covered multiple confessions in today's video about addiction. And this just goes to show that nobody is, invincible to addiction. Addiction can tear anybody down. Whether you have millions or whether you have $5 in your pocket, addiction can ruin your life. You can have it all and it can go to nothing. So just everyone watching, just take this as a lesson and a moral of a story. Addiction is a slippery slope. And even if you have millions of dollars to protect yourself, it still may never be enough. So just, please be responsible, everyone watching, with drinking, drugs, gambling, etc., or just don't do it. Because basically the only thing that can stem from it is bad. But yeah, just a great moral of the story. And with that last one, that wraps up some terrifying Reddit confession threads. What were your guys' thoughts on this video? This video was very heavy, very depressing, very sad, and I think a lot of lessons to be learned here. I really do think that these confessions and stories can teach you a lot. It's taught me a lot just reading through people's experiences on what I should and shouldn't do throughout my life, and it's really impacted me. So hopefully some of these confessions impacted you as well, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out some other videos on the channel. I'm sure you'll enjoy those. And I just want to say I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And yeah, this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.